live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. $1620thezone.com and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome in. It is a hump day. What is going on over there?
I have no idea. The computer's got a mind of its own.
That's what you do. You blame it on the computer. You blame it on the refs. You blame it on the moderator. Take some ownership over there. Let's go. It's a new day.
It is a new day.
Yes. Good morning,
it's
everybody.
It's going to be a nice day.
It is. It is. It is a Wednesday. It is a hump day. It is also Patriots Day. So we will talk about that because this is a day that doesn't seem like 23 years ago.
No.
This morning was a lot different than any other morning that any of us have ever experienced. But we have lots to talk about last night. What a night last night, huh?
What a night. Where do you want to begin? Big.
Well, I just want to tell everybody right now, before we get any further
31.
on this show, okay? Because it's Wednesday, it's the middle of the week. I think, because I was looking at the lineup, and the lineup is deep. I mean, I don't know if we're going to be able to get a show in today with all these guests. But do not fear, everybody, because I have concepts of a plan to get us through 4 hours of talking about sports.
Concepts of a plan. There you go.
Not a plan, but just concepts.
That was always the theme last night.
Yes. So sports.
I like that you went there too.
Sports and Twitter have intersected, and politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they always say stick to sports, and I will first tell you, I was volleyballer last night, so I did not watch the debate, but I had a timeline that had a mixture of debate and volleyball on it.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't tell the difference.
Well, we're gonna have a little experiment here in just a moment, but it was quite interesting to follow because they were running simultaneously. You know, the volleyball match started at 7, nearly went 3 hours. The banger in Lincoln at 5 sets. Nebraska came out on top, and then the debate went 90 minutes. What, it started at 8 and went 90 minutes?
Yeah,
wasn't that what they were scheduled to go 90 minutes?
Yeah.
So I have not watched it. I've read a little bit about it, but there are memes. There is Ken Bone mentions, but I do have concepts of a plan to get us through the show. And I don't know if you've checked our fantasy football league.
Yeah,
my name has changed.
Oh, did it? Oh, I haven't. As of this morning,
my new fantasy football league name is Concepts of a Plan, and I think this
be a good name for a song.
That phrase,
album too.
That phrase will be hammered in the sports world the rest of the week. I'm trying to think in my head who will be the first coach to subtly drop that in a response to a question.
Yep. Yeah. That's so we had them both going on because my wife really wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And so I would take in every now and then when something would be said, or it kind of went the way you thought it would too. There was some anger, could say that, but it was I'll say this, because the last one that involved the previous candidate wouldn't use the word spirited,
otherwise known as the current president.
The current president, the
other one,
the spirit. It was much more spirited.
That's what they call Cooper Manning.
The other Manning. Yeah, the other person who was running.
Brother.
It was from what I could gather, it was entertaining. But yes, the concept of the concept.
Like,
I have concepts of plan. So do you watch The Office, right?
Yes.
Okay. When they're interviewing to see who's going to replace Michael Scott.
Mm-hmm.
This
show is never the same, by the way.
It wasn't. It wasn't. They tried
I
to.
love James Spader, but no.
Well, and Will Ferrell.
Yeah, they tried the Will Ferrell thing, and this was when they land on Will Ferrell. But before they get to that, they're going through the interview process, and Will Arnett is one of the candidates, and he comes in and he's like, "Well, I've got a 3-phase plan that I think will double our revenue for next year. And they're like, oh, wow. Well, can you tell us about that? And he goes, it was a good one. They're like, yes. He goes, well, if I tell you the plan and I don't get the job, then you can still use the plan. Like, well, we don't know if you actually have a plan. And so that's exactly what I thought of when I thought of it. Well, I have the concepts of plan. You know, how about I give you one part of the plan? And then that way, if I win, then you get the full plan. But if I lose, you can't use that whole plan. Even but at the end of the day, it's
well,
a
like
debate.
the sports world will be like I saw Josh tweeted out. I have concepts of a plan. It was a picture of Scott Frost. I'm sure Laker fans will do the same thing with Darvin Ham. Somebody might do it with Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
Actually, many might do it.
I think if I was a Titans fan, I would do it with Will Levis's pick six. And then here's the thing.
Wait, hold on real quick. We haven't even addressed the best part of that pick six. How he's sitting there on his knees,
it was awful,
and just going.
It's one of the worst interceptions ever thrown in the history of the game.
Modern day YA2.
You got players all running by him. I mean, he's not completely out of the play. Maybe life is running by him at the time too, but just sitting there going. Ah! Oh, it was great. Anyway,
see, this is what this is glorious. Because we can stick to sports and because they use the line that we can all use. So this weekend, like when your wife asks you on a good football weekend, you plan on doing anything other than watching football, you can look her straight in the face and go, I have concepts of a plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
This has to be used in sports all week long.
Yeah.
But here's what should have happened. So I am a big proponent of any debates. I don't care if they're between the mosquito board or running for president. Mm-hmm. I think there should be a Manning cast around debates.
That would be good. It'd be really good.
Everybody wants the fact checker, and that's relatively important. But I want the Manning cast on debates.
Yeah.
Because everything is a meme. Again, Ken Bone will live forever. That is one of the best takeaways ever in the history of my lifetime about debates is Ken Bone.
Yep.
I don't even know what Ken Bone's doing these days. I'd love to run into Ken Bone. Google him, Jimmy. See what Ken Bone is doing right now. But think about last night. So you had a five-setter, a banger at the Devaney Center between Nebraska and Creighton. The Nebraska rallied. Boy, they were making me look bad. They came out and they were aggressive and they were dominating and they looked like what Nebraska should look like. And they won the first two sets. And I'm thinking, man, I thought Creighton would go in there and give them a chance. This might be over in 3. And then you have the marathon in the third set, 33-31, which was incredible volleyball. Mm-hmm. Then the fourth set, Nebraska was god-awful. I mean, Creighton kicked them in the teeth, and Nebraska was brutal. And I had a little substitution issue in the third and fourth set. But in the fifth set, Nebraska came out. 9 of the first 10 points were kills. They were rolling. And, I was saying that when you get to the fifth set, the first to 8's going to win normally. But Nebraska goes on to win. And all I can think about is my timeline having, it would be a debate comment. I don't follow a lot of people that get into politics, and I had some certain words muted, but there would be some that would sneak through.
Yeah.
Like once in a while, a Colorado Buffalo would sneak through the Nebraska offensive line. Stick to sports. What if you talked about the Nebraska Creighton volleyball match last night with stuff from the debate? Like, what if you used tweets that were about the debate, but you got them confused and you actually thought they were about the volleyball match?
That's interesting.
Would you say Creighton in the fourth set is eating pets?
Yes.
Now I hear it in a JB voice, and I'm not going to unhear it.
So you were getting inundated with that, yeah. Garrison,
Creighton is eating pets in the fourth.
Did you hear what's going on in Aurora?
All those people listening in Springfield, lock your doors. Go get your pets.
Did you hear about a rally attendance? Oh, that's a rally. That one was well attended. See, that would have been a really good one right there, too. On a rally, and then talk about the attendance.
Tie it all together.
Because that was a thing, too.
I got to imagine people were very confused about us Nebraskans that were watching a volleyball match when the presidential debate was going on and what we're tweeting about, and they're like, whoa, no. Kamala, not Harper. It's Kamala. No, it's not Nora. It's Kamala.
Why can't you guys get the names right? My God. We were taking the dog out for a walk. This was well before. This is probably about like 6 or something, 6:30. And
good walk.
We saw people were gathering in a garage. And I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to have a little Creighton Nebraska volleyball watch party.
Nope.
No, they had it on ABC.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Watching the news.
They're pre-gaming.
No, I'm not.
I
don't know where you are, but I'm
I
not
thought that was-
opposed to people that were watching the debate.
No, I just
It's
thought
just-
it was very interesting.
I
There
was-
was almost looked like a watch party was going on,
Yeah,
which I was somewhat surprised by that.
It was a nice night.
I thought that was very interesting.
Well, people are taking part in the process.
Sure. I
missed it. I wonder if anybody will recap it today on news.
No. I have not seen any images since we've been in this station and had the TV on our NBC affiliate here locally. Good morning, Channel 6. Have not seen one.
Good thing for
image.
the zone.
I
We got it all
say
covered.
that actually sarcastically. That's all I've seen so far. But yeah, I mean, I went from Saturday to seeing like a lot of people gathering, getting ready for the Nebraska-Colorado game. So I just assumed when I saw some people gathering in a garage with multiple chairs out, like there might have been a dinner party going on too, that they had it on ABC.
By the way, if you're lucky enough to go Nebraska, Colorado on Saturday night and then Nebraska, Creighton last night, you've had your voice is probably gone.
Mm-hmm.
Your ears are probably still ringing. It was loud in the Devaney Center last night. But what a showcase for Nebraska volleyball as we welcome you all into Mornings with Sharp and Handley, and Jimmy here as well. Let me first give you the lineup. We're going to talk a lot of football this morning because it's you and I week.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Just like last
us.
week.
It's us.
That should be the name of our show,
Us.
You and I.
You and I. When
Do you
Dylan,
think-
Dylan said something about you and I yesterday, and for a second I forgot he was actually talking about Northern Iowa. I thought he was talking about like you and I.
Like, do you think that Paul
It's
McCartney
a
and Michael
culture.
Jackson, instead of Ebony and Ivory, should have been You and I?
You and I. Yeah.
Could have played it at the Unidome.
It was such marketing for that school in Cedar Falls.
I know.
But it's You and I week, and you can the excitement is palpable.
Oh, yeah.
You can feel it all the way in Omaha. People on the streets are like, you know what? Done with the Buffs. We're on to the Panthers.
Oh yeah.
You can sense the
Easy to
hatred
turn
for
that
them in
page.
this room.
But if you happen to go to both events, that was college athletics in terms of fan engagement at its highest level. And last night was such a great showcase for volleyball in this state with two teams that have aspirations of playing in the Final Four, and at times last night showed how good they can be and that they play volleyball at an entirely different level than most programs. And we got a great one. Went 5. John Cook might not say it was a great one. Kirsten Bernthal Booth after the game, she definitely had comments about the way it all unfolded. But it was a great showcase. BTN puts on a good presentation. The place was packed, and you got drama, you got momentum, you got a 5-setter, and now we have 2 programs that are top 10 programs and are not going to go anywhere. That I tweeted out, wouldn't it be nice to have them in December again?
Yeah.
Meeting somewhere to go to the Final Four, or how about Nebraska Creighton with a chance to either win a national championship or play for a national championship on the line?
That would be amazing. It would be fantastic, and I think that a lot of people that have followed the state's progress in volleyball, and when I say progress, it makes it sound like, oh, it's getting good. No, it's been good, but I think that this matchup last night and what we've seen in previous matchups, even when Creighton's been ranked, let alone in the top 10, that there's always that belief that Nebraska is going to have the answer. That streak speaks for itself. All those things that go into it. But in the process of watching that match, you typically see, and then if you continue to pay attention to Creighton, you continue to see how good that program, how stable that program is. That I said yesterday that this would, without question, be the biggest win in Creighton's program history, where they've had some really good wins. They just had one a week ago against USC, but also the runs that they've had in the postseason of getting so close. If they were able to get into a position where they're playing in the Final Four, Nebraska's involved too, what we experienced last night, it was nice. It was really good because you did have them ranked, both teams ranked in the top 10.
7-game series.
But this thing, I think, would be of epic proportions that I don't think we could even wrap our heads around.
Yeah, it showed last night. There's the difference between where Creighton is, and Creighton is a legit top 10 program, and Nebraska is, when it's win time, Nebraska's a machine. Because it would have been very easy. I mean, the third set last night, they ended up 33-31.
That's nuts.
Was a marathon where you rode the roller coaster of emotions. I mean, that's what intense competition is. It's all with emotions. And man, you rode it last night, whether you were red or blue. Talking about volleyball. And then,
of course,
to get to the fourth, And Creighton shoved it down Nebraska's throat, and they have the momentum going. And then what happened in that building is what happens, and that's what makes Nebraska volleyball stand out away from everybody else. Not only is when it's go time, they are a machine, and something clicks in, is that crowd. That
Willed them.
that nearly 9,000 that go into that building, which is an incredible venue for the sport of volleyball. It is a showcase for the sport of volleyball. You had standing room only last night. That when the fans kick in, they can pick up that team. And it is when they are going at the same time, man, I don't want to be on the other sideline. And that's kind of what happened in the fifth set. Now, Nebraska turned it around, and they went from looking like they were gassed in the fourth set and they were in trouble to a switch flipped in the fifth. The crowd took over, and the next thing you know, Nebraska remains unbeaten all time against Creighton. That's the difference between a Nebraska and a Creighton. Both top 10 programs, but one is at the top of the sport. The other is trying to find the way. And again, I love the response by the head coach for Creighton last night. I mean, KBB, she laid out that they're mad. They should be mad.
Yeah.
That's, you know why they should be mad, and why she said that is because they're not a mid-major program.
Right.
A mid-major program would roll into the Devaney Center and force Nebraska into a fifth set and go, man, we can build on this. This is great.
Yep.
You know what? We might put this on the recruiting film, and this can really, really give us a bonus. And ladies, you went out there and you stressed Nebraska. Okay, you say that if you're a mid-major fledgling program that's just trying to find a way and get that one win.
Yeah.
You say you're mad and should be disappointed, your players, when you feel like you are a legit one of the best programs in the country and you had an opportunity to win what, I agree with you, would have been the greatest win in the history of Creighton volleyball. That's when you say that. That's where that program has changed. Their whole mentality has changed. But Nebraska's mentality, when it's win time, very rarely changes.
Well, and that's what, regardless of what has happened to Nebraska this season, if they've looked sloppy at times, if they haven't looked like that team that, you know, a lot of people feel will be in contention for a national championship. There was a moment, and I thought about your prediction yesterday, and now we got to go back to this. You didn't necessarily predict Creighton would win. You thought they would be favored, and between you and Lincoln Arneal as well, saying this had fifth set written all over it. So all those things came to fruition.
Yeah, I was ready to eat some crow. I had the tweet already. It's in my drafts. I was going to eat crow.
Yeah.
And then, because I wondered if the real Nebraska would show up in this. And
First two sets they did.
I mean, the first two sets they were blocking and dig. I mean, they blocked and digged all night.
Yeah.
But they were a great wall of Huskerdom in the first and second set.
But so this is why I will not. And it was almost kind of that how dare you moment that I had personally of just watching something that I think we view in all different sports of momentum swings. And if you watch the body language between the fourth and fifth set from KBB, from her players, and Nebraska coming back out on the floor in that fifth set, John Cook looks pissed off. He's going back to his team. He's pretty animated.
Did you see what he did during the fourth set? John Nebraska messed up in the third and fourth set. Now, you're allowed 15 substitutions per set.
Right.
Okay? They ran out of substitutions in the third and fourth.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, now, I know when you run a 6-2 and you move people around, that can happen. But that shouldn't happen. But in the fourth set, as poor as Nebraska was playing, he was visibly upset, slammed his clipboard down.
Yeah, and
then ran into the stands and grabbed Dylan Raiola and said, "Come here, young Jesus,"
or Jordan Burrow. But then he, you could tell he's very frustrated. The look on the players was that of what I would have, if I have not ever seen or watched this team, would have thought of, oh no, because they kind of had a blank look on their face. And then I'm looking at Creighton. They're energized. KBB is pumping her fist, just very, let's go, let's get this, let's do this. And it just seemed like, damn, they've got it. And I thought for a second, thinking back to what you said, I'm like, this might be it. I mean, look at them, look at Nebraska. Nebraska looks a little shell-shocked right now. And maybe they were. And that's the other thing is the importance. You said first to get to 8 in the 5th set. The importance of getting that first point, excuse me, in the 5th set, because how the crowd reacted to it. I think in any venue you kind of breathe that sigh of relief because you always feel like, all right, you got the first one. Now you're trying to hold someone off. That's where I went from, that almost blank look on their face that I interpreted as, uh-oh. It was actually probably completely the opposite of, yeah, we're good. We got it. We're not showing it. That was more of the even keel approach of probably where they were, as opposed to they look like they could be stunned. No, I think they were just so confident that there was really no emotion on their face. And that's how they played it, at least. And again, maybe that wasn't the case, but then they got the first couple of points and that's how it played out. But for that moment, just in between sets, I'm thinking, ooh, that right there, just snapshot of how Creighton looks and how Nebraska looks. This may not go Nebraska's way. I honestly thought that going into the 5th.
I mean, I think it was up for grabs. I mean, there was a tension convention, but when you are a machine and you have a winning mentality and you've been in these situations before, you find that extra gear because they were gassed in the 4th. And I thought that they looked about as poor as I've seen a Nebraska volleyball team look in a long while. But then the 5th started and you get a breath of fresh air. And it also probably helped at the end of the 4th. There were a couple of points that they won late that they're like, okay, maybe we put our feet back on the ground. Mm-hmm. But they ended up winning 5 last night, and great showcase for volleyball in the state of Nebraska. And some would like a home and home during the regular season. I say no, I'm like a one-timer. But if you get another one, it's going to be with much higher stakes on the table.
There was one part about the rivalry, though, that I got to say, if we call it a rivalry, whether it's basketball, baseball.
I think you got to be careful in how you describe Nebraska Creighton volleyball compared to what rustles the jimmies more around here, men's basketball.
Yes, and
there's respect on both sides.
Okay, and that's
from fan bases
and the players,
coaches, and players.
Yep.
The Creighton fan respects Nebraska volleyball. The Creighton basketball fan does not respect Nebraska basketball.
In the 3rd set, when you have that back and forth going on, Lindsey Krause got into, there was a moment where I think she rattled off either 2 or possibly 3 kills in a row. The second one almost took someone's head off.
Yeah,
in Villanovic.
That was a violent attack.
I mean, it went.
It was like the Naked Gun.
It smoked her. And there are certain moments in sports, especially against a rivalry, where you might flex, you might give a little "What's up?" She immediately looked and said, "Are you okay?" I mean, and so I
think Becca Alec did the same thing.
Yeah.
That's
so. I
think that's in the sport because that was
vicious.
Was a missile.
Yeah, it was. It was vicious, and I thought to myself right there, if that happens in certain rivalries, you're probably right. It's probably more about the sport itself because of the proximity and the way sometimes the ball comes off at the velocity that it does, that it can be pretty dangerous. But yeah, the fact that you get the stop of like, are you, which great on Lindsey Krause, like awesome sportsmanship. But I mean, I'm sure there's people watching like, hey, no, you
I
flex.
think that's the sport. I think if you watch the sport, that's the sport has, now remember, don't say, well, that's what females do. No, females.
No.
Oh,
hell no. Yeah.
They want to.
They talk as much trash as anyone.
They're cat ladies. They like to scratch each other's eyes out. But I think in that sport,
did there.
Especially because that was, I don't know if there's a radar gun, but that thing was blistered, and that hit the libero. I mean, smacking the chops.
Yeah.
So that was. I think that was appropriate.
Yeah, I thought it was great sportsmanship.
Just to check.
Yeah,
I think the camera panned to a Creighton player, and they're like, "Oh,
it was."
That's what. But see, that's another part of the sport, how it's grown, and how this state, the programs in the state, the coaches, the players, they lead the way in the promotion of this sport, has gained more television coverage, and BTN does a great job. I mean, I can be critical on BTN on certain things. What they have done to the sport of volleyball to elevate that is incredible because they have made it a showcase.
And they should because of that conference.
But I still think the great volleyball at that level, especially last night, TV never does it justice. Mm-hmm. You have to watch it in person to see the power of the athletes that play volleyball. And on TV, it was very apparent that was,
Yep.
I think in person, you're like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. And so watching just that little moment right there on TV, if I'm in the Advantage Center seeing that, especially if I'm on floor level right there, oh my goodness. I mean, that thing was. Yeah.
How about we talk about the floor level seats at the Advantage Center? I want to bring this every time there's a TV match.
The old people?
The Crane fans?
It's the same
Our friends?
It's the same people that sit there, but the camera angle, I don't know as a guy I would sit there.
Oh, I got you.
Because you're showing a little bit of
it's just a weird camera angle.
Yeah, because you're
yeah.
Maybe wear a blanket.
I've never sat there. Those are bougie seats.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You gotta have a lanyard. Did you know you gotta have a lanyard to sit in those seats?
Like going backstage at Alice Cooper in Milwaukee.
I actually was very impressed that you saw a handful of
nice job
that you had a handful of Creighton fans that were kind of smattered in right there in the front row. You see, especially when they go back to serve.
There were basketball players there last night. There was quite a few fans there.
Yeah. No,
they'll be back in Lincoln on Saturday.
Well, it is a former Missouri Valley Conference opponent.
And tickets are available. All right. We'll talk some more about what happened last night because it's not only Nebraska Creighton, but a bigger picture about the state. I'm rooting for Colorado Buffalo, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Also, the grifter is getting squeezed. And Dylan Raiola spoke yesterday, showed up last night. He got there a little bit late, so there was no seat available.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just sitting next to random people in the stands.
Well, that's a fun game.
I would love to hear the story. So there's two females that are they look like they've been going to Nebraska volleyball forever. So I would just be curious if at any point the two ladies
that were sitting behind him.
Yeah, like maybe tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Can I get you anything?
Yeah.
How you doing? Can you sign this for my grandchild?"
You're the young man from the football game.
There was the picture where it looks like they're both having a conversation about him as he's sitting in front of him. Like the one's kind of doing the side talk, and it looks like their eyes are heading right towards him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pretty good.
I don't know if either one of you guys have been outside of football environment since he's been on campus, been to a basketball game, or he was up here for a deal with Bud Crawford. Like, he's different. I think he is the most heralded freshman for Nebraska football because he he's it's not like he draws attention, but he has that look. Like, people do start whispering. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that when they see him and maybe him and the family walk by, or it's just him.
Yeah.
And people start like, there he is.
There he is.
It's kind of interesting. But I think now we're 2 games in, and we'll get into this because ESPN talked a lot about him yesterday. He might be the most heralded freshman at the beginning of his career than anybody that's ever played at Nebraska.
I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I would say, well...
People got excited about Tommy Frazier, but remember, Tommy Frazier didn't start right away.
Right.
But once he did, people talked about him, but we did not have the plentiful platforms that we do now, that you talk about the quarterback at Nebraska that's played exactly 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like people talk about Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I don't think, and to your point about outside of the actual football office in the football field and whatever events he goes to, saw a small example of that at the College World Series this year when he was. So we went to the game itself,
mm-hmm.
and we were in the concourse when he was walking by, and it was exactly that. There were some people that didn't even whisper. They didn't even whisper. They're like, "Dylan, hey, go get a GBR." I mean, you had a lot of that, but there were people as he was walking by, you would see them walk by. This is the true sign of a celebrity. When you walk by and you see that person, and you might be on your phone and you just kind of, as we all kind of do our thing, we're either looking at our phone, then we notice somebody walk by and that's about it. We don't give them a second look. It's when people stop, second look, and then they kind of, their emotion goes from second look to either like half smile, or if they're with somebody of, the fingers start coming out and they start pointing.
I mean, there's
And
a lot
I
of
noticed
people
that.
a lot of people just take pictures of him.
Yeah.
Like without him even knowing or without you being in it.
Oh, yeah.
He handles it really well. He's very cognizant of who he is and that it's a draw. And he has a look.
Yeah.
Like he's not just random guy. Like Andrew Morgan was there last night. Andrew Morgan, who is new to Nebraska basketball from North Dakota State, has a hellacious mullet. He can't just blend in.
I remember
Josiah
Alec, yeah.
can't just
You always
blend
see
in.
him. Yeah.
Like Dylan has a certain look, so he just can't blend in.
Yeah.
But it is like I don't like I've seen he was at an event here in Omaha and I don't necessarily watch him. I watch people how they react to him. Well, that's a lot of power. I mean, hey, being the quarterback in Nebraska, there's a lot of power that goes with it.
Yep.
And when you have Johnny Manziel talking about you and the guys on ESPN talking about you yesterday.
McAfee loves him.
Wow. Took a break from LeBron and the Cowboys.
I told you, he is the front door to the football program. The Nebraska football program needs to be the front door to the university. He's the front door to the football program. That Nebraska's 2-0. And I'm Mr. not super enamored with where the offense is right now guy. But he's leading it. He's played good. I mean, I think our standards have been way lowered about quarterback play at Nebraska. And all of a sudden, he walks in and you're like, oh, that's a quarterback playing quarterback. Here we go. Which is, I mean, hope is a dangerous thing or hope is a great thing. And when Hope wears 15 and plays like that, and you're like, man, he's only 2 games into his career. Oh, my God. Oh, please keep me alive and give me more hymns. Take me to mentality. I got to stay upright.
It's like Ron Powlus and Beano Cook.
It's just it's an interesting dynamic early on in his career. But I always watch people how they react to him more than him because people want pictures, they want autographs and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, the guy that pulled out the helmet, went to his car and got the helmet, I thought was a little much, but to each their own, I guess.
I think
just had that in the back of the car.
And then you get things like what Matt Rule said and what Marcus Satterfield doubled down on yesterday too. Of it's not just him playing the position, the look, the celebrity status that comes with it too, but then you get we need everybody to match his work ethic. So then there's the things that he's doing as the quarterback of Nebraska, which I think I'd say this for this state is with quarterback play over the last several decades. You mentioned one of the greats right there in Tommy Frazier, Eric Crouch, Turner Gill, there's certain ways of going about that position that a lot of people, even older than me, that remember that. And so the pre-debut hype maybe doesn't do enough for them or do a lot for them, which I understand that. And then you mentioned something that I also think goes into that, and that is the standard that we have a quarterback as of late. But
our standards were lowered so poorly around here.
Absolutely they were. But then you get, all right, the dude is looked okay, taking care of the football. He's efficient with the football. There's completion percentages that we can all get on board with. But then when you hear the head coach talk about how his preparation is second to none, how everybody needs to match his level of intensity and his level of preparation, that's where I think the entire fan base, whether you're, that other stuff doesn't do anything for me. You hear that, though, you're like, okay, I like what I'm hearing right there.
All right, lineup brought to you by the roofers of John Higgins Weather Guard. Jay Moore stops by and Brandon Vogel on the last hour of a Wednesday edition of Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy is well. Updated number from the viewership on the Nebraska-Colorado game Saturday night. There were 680,000 people that streamed the game. Not watched it on NBC, but actually streamed the game.
It's the Prime effect. I was actually curious yesterday.
He brought it up, by the way.
He did.
He said, well-watched game, bad, whatever.
And he didn't get into...
I can't paraphrase. Grifter.
I took the bait yesterday.
Oh, wait a minute.
It was part of it.
Nebraska volleyball has lured him in, and Creighton has taken the bait, and now it's 10-4 in the fifth. Okay, continue on.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. I wanted to. I had to entertain a child at home yesterday, so I wanted to. He was doing.
Was
his
it
own
your
thing.
own?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Random.
Yes, it was.
Just picked him up in the neighborhood.
Yeah, just like that kid looks like he needs to be entertained. So when he got into his little world of watching, God knows what, there's just certain things I'm like, I don't even know what that
85 Bears
Anyway,
season highlight video.
I did tune into the Prime press conference because I wanted to see the opening. You know how he does the highlights, and first of all, they were very, very short, lot shorter than they were a week before. I was curious if he would bring up the viewership because it obviously was huge, biggest in NBC's presentation of this at the college football level. I didn't know if he would go into those numbers in specifics and then, like he did the week before, talk about this just goes to show you our fan base. I thought he might. He didn't do it, though. I was actually that's honestly why I tuned in. I wanted to see what the highlights would be, what he would promote from the previous week, and then if he would go with the TV ratings and shout out to the Colorado fans. I was real curious if he'd do that. He didn't do it. I was kind of disappointed.
Somebody shouted out Nebraska's fans. It was Travis Hunter. I think this is what Eric would like to talk about. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, good morning. Hey, I was going to call you on Monday, but my voice was shot.
My man.
About yesterday afternoon. So, hey, before I hit on Travis, we were down there early, and I saw something I've never seen in 35 plus years of going to the games. Just the clown show that is Colorado and Dion. I've never seen an opposing coach get off in a van, not even with the team, with Shador and Shiloh. They were separate from the team, which was really wild to me. So that led me to Travis Hunter, who, by all accounts, seems like a pretty good dude. Outside of like all his talent and everything, which is pretty obvious, but just seems like off the field and like with his comments yesterday that guy has his head screwed on straight, and it's really kind of sad that he's attached to that clown show. I mean, just imagine if he was at a different university. I think he'd be easily a top 3 to 5 pick right now. So I was just kind of curious what you guys thought about all that. So thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Jimmy, you can go to my Twitter, bring up. So Travis Hunter was on his podcast, and I have been a Travis Hunter fan because
he's good.
Kid's good. He's a good. He's good on the field, and he's going to be. But he's going to be a first round pick. I mean, he could be gone in the top 10, and they'll just have to decide where he's going to play in the NFL. But he's a 4.0 student. He attached himself to Dion, so I'm not gonna cry for Argentina. That man, what if he was somewhere else? He would be winning. He tied himself to Dion, and that's the choice he made. But from day, anytime you hear him or see him, and he just likes playing ball. Right. I mean, he's having fun out there, and he had fun with the fans. And you know, he wants to win. You mentioned his emotion the other day. Yeah, but he's a good dude. He's a 4.0 student who is extremely talented. He just likes playing ball, man. He's a college kid who makes mistakes on, away from the field. He's just living the life. So he has a weekly podcast. And I've been a Travis Hunter fan, and I think of everything that came out of last Saturday night. There are going to be more people that are fans of number 12. You don't have to be a fan of Colorado football, and I know for God's sake you're not. But it's easy to be a fan of number 12. So he's on his podcast, and this is what he said yesterday. Yeah.
How could you not like him?
I'm a fan of number 12. I'll watch Colorado State, Colorado this weekend every time the 12 is on.
I was a fan last year when he went the giraffe pajamas on.
You know what? He just likes the ball. And he likes ball. He just happens to play for a team that's got a very large group of unlikable players, especially at the top. And if you want to be a first round pick, you got to act like it. You got to show leadership. Travis Hunter acts like a guy that should be drafted in the first round. And so that was pretty cool. But he likes the ball. And he's a college kid. Okay? So he wears pajamas. You know, those pajamas. Great. He's got a bunch of NIL, but I've never seen anything where, like on video, I go, "Oh man, that kid's a jerk." He's a 4.0 student too.
Well, and this is again, we're looking at the optics of Saturday night and the outward chatter from the Colorado program that became inward during that game because of what Nebraska was doing, and Travis Hunter was front and center of that. But this is the thing that I think in the moment, there's a lot of us that can kind of laugh about it and be like, yeah, see, that's what's happening now because they're getting so frustrated that they're yelling amongst each other. And now you got one of your star players is frustrated with the head coach. Man, yeah, we like to see that. But when you look at the origin of why that's happening, it's exactly what you said right there. It's because they care so damn much about the result and what's happening, or in that case, what's not happening, that they get so frustrated. I mean, you think about a lot of those sideline tirades, if you will, with a lot of players in football. Is there ever been a moment where we ever question how much that person cares about the sport, how much that person cares about their craft? And the other thing I'll bring up, I became a fan of Travis Hunter after that whole Colorado State ordeal, after the Henry Blackburn shot that had him out for the majority of the season.
It turned out to be a good thing.
Yeah, and those two made amends. They actually did videos together. They were, I mean, it was a really cool thing. And so to me, that just shows this is a guy who cares a lot about what he is doing on the field. And he's going to give you that emotion when they're winning. He's going to give you that emotion when they're losing. And sometimes the optics may not look good when you are frustrated on the sideline, but you get where it's coming from, especially if you know more about the guy. And I'm glad you brought up the student he is too, because that is one thing that is always preached by Coach Prime and his players, which I will give him credit for. They emphasize it. But when you got guys like that have the distractions that Travis Hunter has, but still can hang a 4.0 right there too, that's also, hey, respect on that for sure.
I'm a number 12 fan. So we have, as you've heard, if you listen to the radio station, one of our top sales guys, Josh, is a big Colorado fan. And he has a 12 Travis Hunter jersey. Now, I do want to point out that we are now to Wednesday. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're 4 days into a lot of bookmark tweets are disappearing. Colorado fans. Josh has avoided me now to Wednesday.
Yeah, I've not. Usually
I saw him Monday.
For the last 2 weeks.
Yesterday too.
He want no piece of me. Okay?
He's on the video board in the lobby.
Yeah, I did see that. That was pretty funny.
So I find it interesting that he has avoided me now for 4 days because he needs to come get his whooping. Okay, come get your whooping, Josh. Okay, I'm not going to come up to your desk. Okay, come down here into the studio.
You got to come to our territory because he was hanging around a lot last week.
But I will give it to Josh. Josh is a diehard Colorado fan.
Yeah,
and he doesn't blink. But he wears a 12 Travis Hunter jersey. I'm with you. I'm a fan of number 12. I will root for Travis Hunter for the rest of the season at Colorado and then wherever he goes to play in the NFL. He's the only one that has talked about the atmosphere, but I didn't listen to all of it. He may have talked about it, but I think it was more about Colorado. Those are just clips that pertain to Nebraska. Is anybody in the 303 going to talk about Nebraska's defense? Did anybody in the postgame for Colorado talk about Nebraska's defense? Anybody? Did anybody yesterday talk about Nebraska's defense? Anybody? Thank you for talking about Nebraska punched you, beat you. That's cool.
Yeah.
The atmosphere. But has anybody from Colorado given props to Nebraska's defense?
No, it's been more.
Not that they need it,
right.
But I'm just saying, you know what? That was a rather large part of that game, especially when you walked in the door and you said, we got an offense and nobody can stop us. Nobody from Colorado said anything about Nebraska's defense.
No, that's actually a really good point because as you were saying that, I'm thinking, wait, yeah, they have. And then I'm going back to
Give me some proof, Nick.
No, and I can't, because now I keep thinking of, you're right, they punched us in the mouth. Okay, well, that can mean several different things. Offensive line play needs to, actually Dion flipped a little bit yesterday. He's now thinks they have the right dudes there. After Saturday, they had an offensive line problem. Yesterday, they got the right guys there, and they will get better. But it was more about what the offensive line didn't do as opposed to what Nebraska dictated. So, yeah, I'm now going back between what I heard yesterday and what I heard Saturday, and none of it was specific to, damn, that defense just
how
got
about give
after
some
us.
props to Nebraska's defense?
But you know why, Gary? Because the foundation of this football program is based on their ability as a high-powered offense and led by Shedeur Sanders. So essentially by saying—
Does a game recognize game?
It should, but no, it should.
260 yards, boys.
It should.
One touchdown.
But I think there is so much that the pride can handle when you've gotten beaten down, where you actually have to concede that squad on that side of the football was so much better than what we hang our hat on every day, that is waving up a bigger white flag than just 4 quarters of football, in my opinion.
Maybe don't admit it, because that guy that orchestrated that defense is coming to take your job next year.
Mm-hmm.
Remember I said last week?
Yeah. You really had me worried about
Tony
this,
White's resume game?
Yeah.
That'd be a hell of a choice for them. Damn good coach.
Well, but here's the thing that I did love yesterday with a lot of the Nebraska praise from various outlets. And the McAfee stuff, I don't take as much to heart, because McAfee loves himself some Matt Rule, and now he loves himself some Dylan Raiola. But that entire panel, they were talking about the defense, and every highlight that they were showing during those clips were the Nebraska's defense getting after Shedeur Sanders, getting after Travis Hunter, getting after that entire offense. So it doesn't even I hear what you're asking about the Colorado side of it.
You had a quarterback that after the game was a response to a question about Nebraska's defense said, how many times did Raiola get touched?
Right. Basically, well, my offensive line was really bad. Their defense wasn't that good.
You know what?
My offensive line isn't good.
I'm going to tell you, probably in some scrimmages in August, he got touched by Nebraska's defense just like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure he did. And the whole idea of what was being said about Nebraska yesterday, and again, there's certain things like, okay, I understand these are where we get into overreactions after a 2-0 start, and you got this exciting quarterback who looks like a lot like Patrick Mahomes, and everybody wants to talk about that as well. And now seeing the side by side of them run into the end zone and doing the thing.
Yeah. I'm over that, by the way.
I am too.
I'm
Same.
You know what? I'm over that. That one guy plays in Kansas City and is the best at his sport. The other guy plays in Nebraska. I'm over that. I'm glad we've done that for 2 weeks in the national media. I think around here we've stopped.
Yes.
That. I'm over. Hey, that's Lil Cuzzo. Okay. Hey, that's Dylan Raiola. He's a quarterback in Nebraska.
But in the midst of all those conversations that were being had by Nebraska, the defense was a huge part of that conversation.
Yeah,
and it should be.
Feel free to acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm riding with number 12. I like Travis Hunter, and he may have said something about Nebraska's defense, but he's really the only one that it's acknowledged. Dion did. But to acknowledge, hey, we got punched. Well, you got punched because of the defense.
Right.
Just somebody over there, just say, hey, you know what? That's pretty good defense.
Especially for a guy who played defense at a very high level in his playing days, would recognize that. Yeah. I mean, no, I hear what you're saying.
Tony White and Rick George are going to meet in out in North Platte, and he's going to walk in with a box score to the game. He's like, how you doing? All right, Jimmy's got an update coming up here in a little bit. More on what last night was just a magnifying glass of what makes the sport of volleyball so great in the state. And we'll talk about Dylan. I mean, who has not talked about Dylan Raiola? Let's make a list. Who has yet nationally not talked about the quarterback at Nebraska?
Paul.
Because it is death taxes, and on the rundown on national shows is Dylan Raiola. He actually talked about him.
Did he?
So he talked about the Nebraska defense on Sunday morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he is not like Colorado.
Yes, I caught more of his shade on Colorado, but I didn't hear the expanded version of that, maybe getting more detail about Nebraska.
I mean, we have reached the point where Johnny Manziel is breaking down Dylan Raiola.
Aaron Murray, by the way. Good call. I know you brought that up not that long ago.
Yeah.
That's a good film breakdown.
Yeah.
He's a good follow.
Yeah, I don't know that Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor think that highly of Aaron Murray. But Aaron Murray loves himself, the guy that's playing like a vet that's only played 2 games in
Mhm.
college.
Yep.
All right, Update with Jimmy coming up next. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, Jimmy's got an update here in just a moment, but let's sneak in Andy, who is holding through the top of the hour. Good morning, Andy.
Hey, I got a question. So Nick Saban was after Travis Hunter, right? When he was trying to recruit him.
Yep.
Okay, so do you think if Travis would have went to Alabama, you think we talking about Heisman Trophy? Yeah, talking with him. I mean, I do, but it's just too bad that he got caught up with Deion's clown show. And another thing too, when I was listening to Travis on his podcast, he said the crowd affected him. And then when you listen to Sure Do after the game, he said that the crowd didn't affect him, and he's full of crap too.
Yes, he is. All you have to do is look at the pick six, Shadur Sanders, or what'd you call him, Andy?
Sure do.
Well, I call him something else. It's called SI or SHI, but
Whoa.
yeah,
You
but
woke up choosing violence today.
I see what you did there.
That pick six, the crowd noise affected them, and then the quarterback who threw the pick six panicked. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
definitely
And then,
had an effect on them.
I never could stand him, never will. I mean, I don't know, but anyway, he needs to get away from his daddy, but that'll never happen. Another thing too, when all three of them walked out of that van, and I thought, what are you guys doing? Who the heck do you guys think you are? You're not with your team.
Yeah, it's they're not like us, Andy. Is the best way to describe it.
No, I hear you. All right, well, go get red. I'm pulling for the Rams Saturday.
All right.
We already got a sure do, sure don't. Well done, Walter and Rick. That's teamwork right there.
Yeah, Saban was in pursuit, but remember, Travis Hunter was verbally committed to Florida State.
Yep.
So he was in the class of 2022, and that was before we had the early signing period.
Mm-hmm.
No. Well, we did have the early signing period.
Did.
So he was the number one recruiting class. He was the number one recruit in the class of 2022, and had committed to Florida State. If you remember, it rocked college football.
Yeah, everybody couldn't
because
believe it.
when Deion was at Jackson State, he flipped him on that day because Hunter had been locked into his commitment to FSU for about 2 years.
I remember because everybody thought, and how we tend to look at certain trends that could come out of college football, a lot of people were wondering, well, is this the Deion effect? Could he do this more to get people to play at Jackson State? Can he, I mean, are your five stars at Alabama, Clemson, Florida State, Florida, are they safe if Deion Sanders is still looking at them even at the 11th hour? And as we learned, that was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but I mean, that was a hell of a get.
So, I mean, people look at his involvement at Jackson State a couple of different ways. He did bring attention to HBCU.
Yes.
There is more HBCU football in the fall in different ESPN platforms than I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And not just the Plus. They don't just hide it on the Plus.
No, they're on TV.
They are giving HBCUs attention to tell the story of the university and then to show their football team. So he did bring attention to that. But you're right. People wondered, okay, are they going to flip? But what it also did is the Eddie Georges of the world that wanted to be coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mickey Joseph is at Grambling.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I think that was the Deion effect.
Yes.
But imagine if he was at Florida State.
Mm.
I mean, wherever Travis Hunter's playing ball, he's balling.
Yeah.
I'd take him on my team.
There's certain things, and that's the thing. I know a lot of people are, now that he's no longer our problem, meaning we don't have to worry about Nebraska having to defend him. I think people will even appreciate watching him even more. But I guarantee you, there are a lot of people that if they didn't see a lot of Travis Hunter, because remember, he was injured for a lot of the season last year. When you saw that catch.
What did he miss? 3.5 games?
Yeah. Was it was it more? Okay. I felt like it was.
I think
like
that was
probably because it was in the middle of that losing
streak.
streak.
They had the ESPN game day special on him on Saturday. I think they said 3.5 because
Okay.
they were doing how many snaps he had played, and if he stays healthy this year, he might play 1,500 snaps.
It felt like, and it was obviously during that losing streak too, that he was not active. And then when he came back, there was very little they could do anyway. But that catch that he has against NDSU where his body bends, I mean, all of his momentum is going back, but his body bends forward to make that catch. I can't remember which pro player, because there was a lot of reaction that said that was a cheat code, but that's essentially what it was. It was a cheat code. I mean, you shouldn't be able to make those types of plays. So whether he's wearing a Florida State, Alabama, or any other jersey, the dude would have stood out no matter what.
Let me read this email, and I'll let it sit because it's kind of what Andy said that I didn't get to the other day, and then we'll get to Jimmy's update. So this is from Eric in Fremont. I have not seen this. I watched the first half. I watched bits and pieces of the second half. Eric wrote in to the Equitable Bank inbox, how is no one talking about the weird interview before the game on NBC where Dion says, we're going to come get Raiola?
Yeah. Him and then he brings Shiloh.
Okay, he then weirdly says, isn't that right, son, as the camera pans out, that had to be planned by him. Then Shiloh is awkwardly standing next to him, nodding his head. He said, if you have Peacock, it's right at the beginning of the replay of the game, I believe 30 seconds in.
Yikes.
Then we proceed to take Shiloh out on the first drive.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's played later in the NBC broadcast, too. I'm almost positive it's played later in the NBC broadcast because I wasn't watching Peacock's pregame. I remember seeing that before, and then I could have swore it was shown later in the NBC broadcast, too, which didn't age very well. And it was almost in a way that that's why they showed it. But, yeah, I mean,
okay, so the bottom line is, what was more entertaining to the Nebraska fan? The reality show that played against Nebraska on Saturday night or Tommy Lee Goes to College?
Ooh. I mean, you had more days of Tommy at the campus. Like, if we could have got a full week.
And who doesn't like some Tommy Lee?
Of the Colorado Circus.
Does it feel like it's been almost 20 years?
No.
Nothing has.
No, it doesn't. But you're right. I don't know why the one thing I took away from that is that the tutor was Mike Stunts' girlfriend at the time, which I believe is now his wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, that was also at essentially the birth of reality TV. Now it's just nothing. I mean,
That's a good poll question.
We essentially have reality TV. We have a reality TV show, Colorado football.
Better reality show filmed in Memorial Stadium. Colorado football 2024, Tommy Lee Goes to College. All right.
Give me a full week of that, and I think I would have said Colorado.
I'll get that poll up. Yesterday's went well. It finished 89
we only
to 11.
had 24 hours of that.
I had the time I was away from Nebraska was while that was airing. Try watching that with someone that is not from here and have to explain. Remember, it's a reality show.
Yeah.
We don't. Yes, that's Butch Hug. All right. Jimmy's got an update right now. Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel a little bit later on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy?
Toledo hits 3 two-run home runs. Hey, it was still a nice day for a game. The Mud Hens cruised to an 8-1 victory over the Storm Chasers in the series opener yesterday at Werner Park. Bly Madras homered in the third inning, Wensil Perez in the sixth, and Riley Unroe in the eighth. Some great names there. Omaha had opportunities to draw closer, but it left 6 runners stranded in the middle innings, though at least it was not all in one inning. But they'll have another chance to do it again tonight at Werner Park at 6:35. Once again, should be a nice evening for a game. They all are. Shiloh Sanders is expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks following surgery to repair a right forearm injury. How did it happen? Dion confirmed the surgery and the outlook for Shiloh, who suffered the injury in the first quarter of Saturday's 28-10 ass-kicking in Lincoln. He went to the locker room after tackling Huskers running back Dante Dowdell on a run play that he ran violently. He had 9 tackles, including 1 for a loss in Colorado's season-opening win over the Bison. Auburn senior quarterback Peyton Thorne, man, he's still around. He said criticism after losses, such as Saturday's defeat to ACC Power California, has included requests for money from bettors. Thorne, appearing on the next round, whatever that is, said bettors have messaged him on the Venmo asking for money, saying they're definitely not sending cash. Who knows what they're sending? He made light of the request for money during his appearance, but the issue is something that the NCAA is monitoring and trying to combat. Good luck. Results from a study by Signify, an artificial intelligence company. They're becoming self-aware. They're going to take us all out. Found that 1 in 3 high-profile college athletes receive messages from individuals with a betting interest. At the request of the NCAA, Maryland, Louisiana, Ohio, and Vermont are among the states that have banned sports books from offering prop bets on college players. Speaking of money, former NFL running back Adrian Peterson needs a lot of it because he's been ordered by a Houston judge to turn over numerous assets as a means towards paying a debt that is estimated at more than $12 million. It's almost as bad as my college loans. The court-appointed receiver requested this order in July, said Peterson is known to have numerous assets at his home in Missouri City, Texas. The Houston judge on Monday ordered constables in Fort Bend County, Texas, to accompany the court-appointed receiver to Peterson's residence to keep the peace. His debt issues began when he took out a loan for $5.2 million from a Pennsylvania lending company in 2016. The sum has grown because of interest and attorney's fees, leading to an $8.3 million judgment against him in 2021. Other football, with an aggravated calf injury continuing to limit Russell Wilson, the Steelers are preparing for Justin Fields to start against Denver on Sunday. Wilson will not participate fully in today's practice, according to Coach Mike Tomlin, and the team will meet with doctors afterwards to determine a plan for his inclusion the rest of the week. Though Tomlin typically doesn't use players on Sunday if they don't practice on Friday, he allowed there is some leeway in availability for veterans such as Wilson's because they're paying him a lot of money. Finally, in baseball, Royals, Twins, Guardians all win to keep up with each other in their division race. The Orioles beat the Red Sox 5-3. The Twins got by the Angels 10-5. Guardians blanked the White Sox. Nick was very nervous. Remember, he said it's been a struggle with them this year. 5-0. Reds defeat the Cardinals 3-0. And the Astros lose to the A's at home 4-3. That's too bad. Padres beat the Mariners 7-3. Mariners may never win again. Diamondbacks defeat the Rangers 6-0. Take that for some revenge. Hey, the D-backs 81-64, so they're doing quite well. The Rangers will not be defending their title this October. They're 70-75. Brewers beat the Giants 3-2. The Cubs win again at Los Angeles 6-3. They're 75-70. And the Tigers in the game of the night defeat the Rockies 11-0. Pirates over the Marlins 6-4. And the Phillies beat the Rays 9-4. But let us not forget that the Royals shut out the Yankees 5-0. And the Blue Jays defeat the Mets 6-2. We are about 3 weeks away from playoff baseball.
And let's not forget that Pete Crow Armstrong, who cost us a half year of Javi Baez, had an amazing robbery of a home run last night. People forget that the Cubs.
Was that the Shohei one?
No, Max Muncy.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. The Shohei one wasn't really a robbery, I guess. It was just a deep fly.
Pete Crow Armstrong may never hit in the majors, but boy, he'll have a glove.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know this, but the Cubs have won 10 of 14.
Keeping you engaged, right? How many Cubs players do you have in your fantasy baseball team?
I have Justin Steele, who went on the IL along with Vinny Pasquantino and screwed me out of.
Sorry about that.
The opening round of my playoffs.
Okay,
but if I had a concept of a plan, I would have been better prepared for that. All right. Thanks, Jimmy. We would
polls now up on the page, by the way, on your reality show question. See what people think.
Thank you. What was a better filming of a reality show in Memorial Stadium? The 24 Colorado football team or Tommy Lee Goes to College, filmed in 2005.
Please feel free to go participate.
One of the great things about it's pockets of crews that would follow certain players around and then the whole team, because we talked about the amount of guys on the team that look like they're on the coaching staff, but they're getting content, they have cell phones. But I think we mentioned this on Monday, and a lot of people saw this when Shador was going back in the locker room before the game was over, is the camera guys. There's more than one, because I noticed this on the sideline before the game in some of the shots that were on social media. There's more than one that have the Sanders t-shirts that are his camera guys. So they're specific to him. Like, what are we doing? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
We're doing Colorado football. And the problem is, this is where it's gotten really edgy in Boulder, is people are talking about the actual football.
Yeah.
Like they're critiquing the football. We've ridden the high.
Yeah, that smoke screen's kind of wore off.
We've ridden the high of the Dion effect.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to get really uncomfortable for the grifter because people are talking about the football, the X's and the O's.
Well,
that's the last thing they wanted. They wanted to be able to cloud the X's and O's with all of the smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are digging deep into the football stuff, and that's when it gets really uncomfortable in Boulder.
And more importantly, some of the people that are digging into that football stuff also impact what a lot of people felt his next step would be in the NFL, because now you're getting NFL execs, and you had two over the weekend look at just the end of that first half alone and clock management and how ill-prepared they looked against a team that clearly had this going into it, like Nebraska's defensive front, and not having any type of plan or any type of adjustment. That is being discussed now amongst NFL executives that maybe have Dion on a watch list on, hey, is this guy ready to come into the league too? So it's not just the Colorado fans too, but it's also potential future employers that might want Deion Sanders on a sideline at the pro level, not boding well.
No,
for
that's
him.
not. Who would want that? Shane writes
probably
Deion coaching Colorado football is a gift that
I'm
you
preparing.
keep getting all year. Oh, there's no way. There's no way that an NFL franchise would bring Deion in, and I don't think he'd want that. I just don't think he'd want that. There can't be a serious NFL franchise that would even remotely think that. And I'm even including the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you.
I mean, are you hearing something
Hope.
different?
I'm not hearing anything
You
different,
talked
but
to
I mean,
Jarrah?
as of last year, that there was a lot of people.
He connects with players.
Mhm.
But there's more than that goes into winning. What would say to you that he would win in the NFL?
Not a damn thing.
All right. There's no
not a damn thing.
There's no portal. You got a cap.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You have the cap, but the conversation, and a lot of this was also stemming from the start that they got off to last year of the guy can coach. Well, the guy had some players.
So let me pause you there. Dirk brought up a great thing on Twitter yesterday. Would we look at Colorado football differently if they've not beaten TCU to start the season and the way they did it? Because remember, TCU had played the national championship game the year before, and we were all in on Spike Dykes. We're like, "Whoa, this is going to be great."
Yeah.
Not Spike, Sonny
Dykes. Yeah.
We were all like, "Hey, man,
Rest in peace.
They beat
Coach.
him," and you're like, "Oh my God, they just won in Fort Worth against a team that played the national championship game." Dirk brought this up. This was a great question on Twitter. Would our reaction to Colorado football be different if they would have lost that game, regardless of what they did in game 2, which was Nebraska? But if they had lost game 1, would we have looked at them differently? Because they win on that Saturday, and it's through the roof. Because there were a lot of questions prior to that.
Yep.
They win, and you're like, oh my gosh. That was a great question.
That is a good question, and I think we would have. I don't think there's any question. And I think a lot of what some of the NFL chatter was that. And hearing, there's more to just the flash that you're beating TCU, national runner-up. You beat Nebraska off to this 3-0 start. I mean, the cracks in the facade right away should have been the fact that they were in a game with Colorado State with the talent that they had. But people couldn't help themselves, and a lot of people felt like this was going to be a pit stop because there's always the talk of a pit stop at Colorado, then that would leverage into either an SEC job or he would be at his alma mater in Florida State at some point. Or would the NFL be an avenue? And people, I remember this specifically, even Rich Eisen was talking about this, of his relationships. And I get it. They have a relationship because they're on the NFL Network. But what you just brought up right there, his connections, but his also relationships, it being in the business as an analyst, that could serve him well at the NFL level if you were to continue to show that you had success as a coach. I don't think many people are saying it this year, but I did read a couple of things over this weekend. It said NFL execs are weighing in on Deion, the type of coach he is as opposed to the type of promoter he is. And it's not something that is going to go well if you were thinking of the NFL.
Hey, at some point, people wake up and go, let's talk about your X's and O's. Some coaches will be like, hey, go ahead. But when you don't want them to talk about your X's and O's because you have smoke and mirrors, man, that's when it gets uncomfortable when you start to get squeezed. And then there are no guardrails and everybody's taking a swing and they're coming to get you. All right? Coming to get you. We're coming to get you. That's their song, by the way, before they go out on the field. We're coming to get you. By Mystical.
Oh.
I'm probably not a big Mystical.
I know of Mystical, but I don't know.
He once told people to shake their ass and watch themselves.
Yes, I do know. I know that part.
Very true.
Watch yourself.
I think we should all take care of our brothers and sisters and say the same thing to them. All right. A little bit later, Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel to join us. We would be very much remiss in this country because this is 9/11. 23 years ago today, it's a day that all of us that were around will never, ever forget. And it is Patriots Day as we remember one of the worst days this country has ever had, maybe the worst day, Pearl Harbor right behind it, where we lost nearly 3,000 people. So we think about the families that lost loved ones, and it's a day that you'll never forget. And a day that started, I know I was living in Lincoln, Nebraska, very peaceful. The weather was really nice. You were still on a high because a couple of days ago, Nebraska had beaten Notre Dame. And how the day started, ironically, it was a great weather day in New York City. It is another beautiful day in New York City. What happened and how the day ended and how it changed us forever. And everybody will take a moment to remember if you were impacted by a loved one that you lost, whether in the World Trade Center, in Pennsylvania, at the Pentagon. You will remember those people, and you will probably stop and go, man, has it really been 23 years? Because the FDNY is about to hire a new class of firefighters, men and women, that were born after 9/11. And there's another of everything, and I am someone that I cannot get enough of all of the coverage and that day and 23 years later, and I will watch the remembrances today. But here's just a startling stat. So the first responders that didn't hesitate and got to ground zero, there were 303 first responders that died that day. They put out a note this week, coming up on the 23-year anniversary of 9/11, is that now first responders to that day at ground zero, because of the exposure to the toxins, they've lost 370 men and women. So more men and women have passed away due to the exposure than actually passed away helping their fellow brothers and sisters to safety on that day. And I saw that stat last week shared on Twitter, and I paused and I thought, wow. But it is Patriots Day. Might be easy 23 years later, just go about your business. But just remember, there are people that are still telling the stories of how great their loved ones were, how they miss them, and what that day did to our country. Because it changed us forever.
It did. And with at the age that I was at, you're just kind of discovering the world as an adult, and we all have our stories of where we were, and we'll never forget that, and we'll remember every detail of that day. And I know here locally, if you were living in the area, especially where I was in the Ralston area at the time, I think we'll all remember when all the air traffic was grounded, yet you heard the sound of a plane coming overhead. You couldn't see it, and then you realized it was Air Force One. And I think that's where a lot of people here locally was like, wow, okay, this is now, it's come here too, because that's where our president is. The fact about what I take away the most, because you brought it up, is I think it always went without saying, you always had that built-in respect for law enforcement and firefighters, because you know what that job entails, and it's extremely difficult, even with what we see our local firefighters go through. But something of that magnitude, and you heard this said a lot, and I'll never forget it now. Every time I even just see a fire truck at my local grocery store as they're going to get their groceries for the week, I look at them differently because of the job that they do. But it's the whole, when thousands of people are running out, they're running in. And you know that. You probably knew that before 2001. But as young as I was, to hear that and to see exactly what they were running into, and the fact that a lot of them didn't make it out, it puts a lot of that, of the people that stepped up that day, forgetting about their lives, their family, to save complete strangers, because that's what the job entails. And there's so many other things that you take away from that, but from the effort in that moment is probably the thing that'll never leave me, and will always make me look at anybody wearing those uniforms and doing that, whether it's here in Nebraska or that's in New York or anywhere in between and beyond. The utmost respect for what those men and women do.
I mean, it's hard that, man, it's been 23 years. 23 years on this day in 2001 that started as a great day. It was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Weather was great.
It's very peaceful where I was.
Boom.
Yeah.
And how the day ended and how it changed forever. So today is Patriots Day, and will be remembered around this country. All right, 7:31, quick break. We'll come back a little bit later. Our good friend on Wednesdays, Jay Moore, to break down a lot of stuff. And then Brandon Vogel, who will break down even more stuff ahead of Nebraska and Northern Iowa. Nebraska, if you can find it, about a 31-point favorite in this game against Northern Iowa, who is not interested in the forward pass.
Nope.
They would rather make their hay by running the football. And look at Nebraska's defense only gives up 1.6 yards per carry.
Something's got to give.
Exactly. That should be the promotion.
Something's got to give Saturday.
It's mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
It's officially the most wonderful time of the year, Vala season. Vala's open starting September 13th through November 3rd and has family fun you know and love, including the new rides this year, Freya's Egg Spinner, and Tim's Runaway Grain Train. Don't forget about the delicious foods like fresh pies, caramel apples, kettle corn, turkey legs, and more. Listen to Unsportsmanlike Conduct every afternoon for your chance to win a pair of passes.
All right, 1620 The Zone. Hello to all of our TVers, our YouTubers, wherever you are consuming the program on this Wednesday morning. Welcome in. There's Nick, Jimmy. I'm Gary. Hello also to all the fantasy football managers that got up early this morning or did it last night in real time, and you have changed your team name to Concepts of a Plan or Concepts of a Team and so on. You are the real person on a Wednesday morning that should be sticking their chest out and feeling pretty good about life, because you're a funny guy or gal.
That's a nice little subtle plug for yourself.
Yes. Instead of every day. Well, because Russell Wilson is done. Russell Wilson should retire.
You had the every day I'm wrestling for a while.
Russell Wilson should retire when this year is over.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But so my team name for fantasy football has been Every Day I'm Wrestling for a long time. Now, and I got kicked this weekend. I got beat so bad.
Yeah.
So I changed it to Concepts of a Plan.
I like it.
Yeah.
The winds have changed for you. That'll be good. Change your fortunes.
I hope so. I still can't believe I had a tight end that got me 1 point.
I have that same tight end. He's going to do better.
It's all right. I had a kicker who was a last-minute scratch that I
Dalton
had
Schultz,
started.
yeah.
Could have been worse. Could have had Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's true, too.
All right, we'll talk more. Probably just spend the whole 8 o'clock hour talking about our fantasy football teams.
Sounds good.
Coming up here in a little bit.
Everybody wants to hear that.
So last night in Lincoln with Nebraska and Creighton volleyball, where we almost had a reverse sweep. Nebraska won the first 2, Creighton won the next 2, and Nebraska won the marathon, winning in 5. And the greatness that is volleyball in this state, and you have an elite program, and then you have Creighton, which is scratching its way up, but is a legit top 10 program. I still think it's such a credit to that program that in a sport that is dominated by Power 4 schools, Creighton just kind of sneaks in there, and they're like, Big 10, Big 10, Big 10, SEC, Big 10, ACC. Big East. And there's so many things that sport in this state has is like a foundation. I think the venues do a lot. I mean, there is nothing like a night at the Devaney Center. I don't care if Nebraska's playing, Hobo U, or they're playing Creighton, or they're playing Wisconsin. That place is a banger. Okay, it's a really cool place to watch.
Yeah.
Sokol Arena, packed. Cool place to watch, intimate environment. They've tried at Baxter Arena with Omaha to make it a good environment. UNK and Wayne State playing good environments. So we got good venues for that sport. We got local players. The 2 top programs have head coaches that have been there forever. Everybody knows them. They're not Johnny-come-latelys that just stopped in. They've been at their respective jobs for many, many years, so they're familiar with the landscape. They're not afraid to promote the sport. The Big Ten Network does a great job of promoting volleyball. I mean, Larry Putney does a great job.
Yeah.
They know the sport. They like to talk about the sport. And the state of Nebraska has put that sport in a great spot. Here's another sign that you're in a volleyball state, and on the heels of last night's thriller, is a lot of people can just rattle off players' names. We were talking earlier about the quarterback that walked in last night, and he's a star. The Nebraska volleyball players are stars.
Yeah.
I mean, they're out there. They're on TikTok. They're on social media. Everybody knows them. They have a huge following. They're the top brand in all of women's athletics in college. But the fact that people can just rattle off names, Jackson, Beeson, Krause, Murray, Rodriguez, on and on, Martin, Sis, Waite. You don't get that at many places. Again, a Tuesday night in a college town, in a sport, and you have it wall-to-wall SRO, nothing like volleyball in the state of Nebraska. And others have tried. Others are close. It's great that the sport is growing, but nothing will top this state for that sport.
And I think there was a little bit of this maybe a couple of years ago with what Creighton was doing and has done under Kirsten Bernthal Booth, is the sort of it kind of to the Big East representation there in the top 10, where you think of, oh, good for Creighton. No more. And that's the thing that's no longer the feeling around Creighton of, well, like you said, if there was a team that was a non-power 5 or a team that was a mid-major that came in and maybe grabbed a set from Nebraska, that's going to make the season highlight reel, regardless of where they go in their respective conference tournament and beyond. But there was a time that we would think, oh man, you're right, like Creighton hung. And I love the fact that we don't look at them anymore like that. But I also love the fact that when you have that showcase like that last night, the amount, as you pointed out, the amount of Nebraska talent that's in there, but also the impact of, you say rock stars because of the name recognition. And in my opinion, it goes beyond that, because of when you see young people there, and I'm not even talking about 7 to 8-year-old, 9-year-old girls that hope to be playing there one day in that match, regardless whether they're playing for red or blue.
Stick to sports.
It just so happened to be on the night of the debate.
Stick to sports. Let's go. Stick to sports.
You have high school players as well. That this is what I always say is a true sign of the impact that any student athlete, male or female, has.
Oh, can I pause you for something?
Yes, you may.
This is really cool for our country. So they are remembering 9/11. Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York, is there. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, is there. The vice president, Kamala Harris, is there. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are there as well.
Yep.
Great moment for our country.
That is, absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's no.
That they were just showing them. That's
yep.
Good on that, because that was also a day 23 years ago where unity and compassion, we didn't even hesitate.
No.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. And very, very appropriate, pardon the interruption there, for sure. I look at, this is where I get into crowd shots, and this is where you get into the social media of what these players, and Creighton has this effect too. Norris has this effect as well, of when high school players see these players and they're looking at them in awe. And it's not just they're excited to be there. They want to see these teams play, but when they get a chance to meet them, the way that they look at these players as if they're meeting their idol, and that impact. This is the one thing I know. The competition last night was fantastic. It was awesome. That you're right. That third set was exhausting if you're watching that on either side, and you're getting reviews and everything. You're wondering. I mean, the momentum change of it was amazing. So there's all of that part of this match last night that was fantastic. But I always feel like in these moments, with the way that the state is represented in this sport at the highest level, where there was a lot of people that are college volleyball fans, people that are, they know the sport too, were tuned in last night to see that good on all of those players that handle that stage and that platform so well, because that's the beauty of this. And I think both coaches between John Cook and Kirsten Bernthal Booth talk about this in various stages, and that is the ambassador of the sport that these girls are, especially in the state, that none of them hesitate. They don't shy away from it. They embrace that. It has made the sport nationally, locally, it is what it is. There's no worry about that. But nationally, as we've seen that grow, that's a big part of it, in my opinion.
Different note here on this date. Are you guys familiar with what happened 2 years ago?
I do.
Date? So Terry writes in. He says, hi, guys.
Hey, Terry.
Additionally, on this date 2 years ago, we fired another head coach. How tremendous is it that we could climb the rasts of absolute low point and be where we are today? Thank you, Coach Rule. Also, Tony White, he makes the quote, it's Tuesday, we're the worst defense in the country.
Yep, there's that.
So 2 years ago today,
It was on the marquee.
Scott Frost got fired.
Yep. Where were you then?
Watching football.
It was a Sunday.
It was NFL opening.
It was a Sunday. I was watching Bears, Niners, and I was also on a golf course early that morning when somebody I was playing with said, so Frost is done, right? And I said, yeah. They're like, so are you going to have to leave early today? And I said,
oh, that's right. You guys didn't do anything, did you?
We, who's now in Lincoln, Austin Norman, good friend of mine, he and I, we just said, hey, we got to do something. So we jumped on a podcast. That's all we could do.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
we got on YouTube, and that's all we could really do. But we jumped on the podcast.
It was a Sunday. I got a text. It's happening.
The GIF.
And then I responded, "Do you think we should go in and be on the air?" And he's like, "Nah, it's Sunday." So Josh, Connor, and John, I think they were on the air for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I was on for a little bit, but yeah,
I remember.
I listened to you guys
2 years ago today.
Yeah.
I'd been here a couple weeks. What a hell of a couple weeks.
I was on hole 14 when I was starting to hear this is probably happening today, and then I think it was like the subsequent hole. We got the email from Keith Mann, and I mean, I could say this because it's very convenient to me, but I was actually shooting very well. Probably would have had my best score.
I was going to ask you, how'd you play?
And then I blame Scott Frost for that.
The 49ers Bears game. This was the rainy one?
Yeah, the raining one. Yeah. Fields doing his little dive into the, yeah. So
It didn't even dawn on me that was 2 years ago today.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, there was a lot of remarks about in a day of remembrance on 9/11. We're now remembering the very short, or the very unsuccessful coaching career of Scott Frost. I'm like, man, I don't think the two are very comparable.
If you're just tuning in, trust me.
I'm on to Northern Iowa.
I can sense the hate coming from you over them.
I don't have any hate. You know what? I'm glad that Scott is in the game of football.
Oh no, I was talking about Northern Iowa.
There was not a chance I probably could have gotten to Northern Iowa with graduating from a Iowa high school. I had no desire to go to Cedar Falls.
Is it really tough to get in?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
My mom,
my
mom grew up in Jessup, which is near Waterloo, Waterloo is Cedar Falls.
Yeah.
So I've been to Cedar Falls many times as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I just had no desire to go to school there. I like to go to the Unidome, but I didn't want to go to school there.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yeah, it's Waterloo. I think differently about Waterloo. So, but I don't know that I would have gotten in.
They got some good hockey out there.
I don't know. What does that say about Nebraska? And also Creighton. By the way, I got accepted at Creighton after I left.
But you don't think you could have got accepted at UNI then?
Well, after I left Minnesota,
you're selling yourself short.
Mid-semester transfer.
You're going to be you were going to go to Creighton?
Wow, there's a sliding door theory if I ever heard one.
I did look at Creighton.
How about this?
Yeah.
This just
I didn't know much about Creighton.
Right.
You just knew about the College World Series team.
The only thing I knew about Creighton was they played in the Missouri Valley Conference in basketball because I go to a lot of Drake games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got accepted by Creighton. And then my folks looked at how much it would cost.
Look at the big brain on Gary.
I was like, they made a mistake. Wow, they'll accept anyone at mid-semester.
Tough to get in? Yeah. Hell no.
They trying to make quota?
You could have been a Blue Jay. Wow. The turns life takes us.
Well, I don't think I would have because I wanted to be in broadcasting, and they don't have a broadcast. They don't have a broadcasting school for radio, TV.
And he didn't want to be.
They have a good journalism program for print, but I don't believe they have any radio, TV.
And you didn't want to be a teacher, so UNI's out. No. UNI's out the door.
America didn't need me to be a teacher. Even though I want to say thank you to OPS. So occasionally I will be a sub.
Really? I mean, I know you.
So they were.
I forgot this.
So
certain classes,
when
but
COVID hit,
yeah,
and then the next year after COVID, there were a lot of teachers that left OPS.
Yeah.
And they were in desperate need of subs. So like twice I've been a sub.
How does that how would that work? Like, I mean, you're off the air.
I did a half day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you come in like after lunch.
They'd talk about the show.
I have so much more respect for teachers.
Kids would
ask. They didn't. I didn't have anything difficult. I basically.
It was Jim.
There was like a couple of tests that I just, said, hey, here's the test. And
is SIP really like that, Mr. Sharp?
They weren't going to trust me to teach anything, for God's sake. I mean,
they still have like Oregon Trail on the old computer on the MS DOS. You could play the Oregon Trail with the class
with the little headset that you'd wear.
Oh God, I miss Oregon Trail.
I got kids were taking tests, and I'm like, what do I do? I was like bored, so I was on my phone. I'm probably setting a bad example.
You've seen summer school. Mr. Shoop laid a template for everybody.
Were you doing? I know you're not a big blog. Were you doing a blog?
No.
You're show prepping.
No. I just haven't. I think you have to sign up every year or indicate that you'd like, and I haven't done that for a couple of years.
Was you don't have to tell me specifics, but was the money okay?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's actually really good.
Nice.
I mean, I did 2 half days,
but 2-Card Monty says UNI has a 94% acceptance rate. You could trip on their doorstep and get in. It's around this time that my
There's some smack talk
my
for you on Saturday.
amazing, lovely wife is listening because this is right around drop off. So
Good
I
morning, Jenny.
I hope she's not listening.
Hey.
I know she busted her butt to get in, and she's not a teacher.
When I applied to Minnesota, and that's where I went for my first semester, they put you before you get into your major, like the first 2 years at Minnesota, you take all these classes before then you slide over to the School of Journalism.
Yeah.
I applied for the liberal arts school, and I mean, hey, I was a terrible student. So I wanted to go to Minnesota because I love the Twin Cities.
Mhm.
And I got denied. But
Really?
they said, you may be up for general college.
Oh,
So then I got accepted to general college.
I thought you got him because they're like, "Are you Walt Sharp's kid?" we know him. We know him in the baseball circles.
I don't miss that at all. UNI has a 94%.
That's according to 2-Card Monty. You're taking in for his
I never
word.
applied. Like I knew I couldn't get into Drake.
I could ask. I'm sure
I could get into Iowa, and I got accepted at Iowa and Iowa State.
My wife has never made it sound like, oh, it was grueling to get in. So
The
he might be
Yale
right.
of Iowa?
Yeah, he might be right.
But you know what?
I used to work with a guy who hated Northern Iowa, thought that they should just close the school down.
I only wanted to go to a Power 5 school.
Yeah, I see how you are.
I had to go to a place that had major college football.
You wanted to go where game days mattered.
Yeah.
I get you. Now you tell some people, you mentioned the Unidome. I've heard a lot of fun times were had at the Unidome for a college football Saturday for all the Northern Iowa Panthers. And they had some good teams.
They used to pack the place.
Shout out Kurt Warner.
They used to play basketball in there. I went to a Northern Iowa basketball game that drew 22,000.
See, what was that? I wish I would have gone to a basketball game there. The only thing I've seen there is at the McLeod Center, which is nice, but I've heard that the Unidome was pretty unique, kind of dumpy, but kind of cool when it got packed for basketball games.
Yeah, they've invested a lot of money into it recently. But yeah, I mean, they play the state football championship. They actually play the semifinals and championship in the state of Iowa in the Unidome. So once you make the semifinals, you don't have to worry about weather.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's amazing. But I heard the dome itself is
a
little rickety now.
Maybe I'll hop on the old Demuth Facebook and talk some smack. I have some cousins that graduated from Northern Iowa. They're like, hey, haven't heard from you in about 25 years.
You would know this because a really good friend of mine
true.
he also went to UNI, met him through my wife. He lived in Denver. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I'd always ask him about Colorado stuff. He's like, no, I lived in Denver, Iowa. I'm like, what the hell is Denver, Iowa? And he said it was just kind of outside Waterloo. Never even knew about Denver, Iowa. Have you ever been to Denver?
Yeah.
Okay.
Denver, you have
Denver, Colorado.
You have Don Bosco, Gilbertville. What else would you like to know about that area?
I don't know. It was
the great
mind blew when he's like, no, I'm talking about Iowa.
Of, Jessup, home of the Demas.
Yeah.
You got Independence. Oh, I know.
Oh,
that
he was
part of Iowa.
looking at me all kind of crazy. I'm like, oh, so I'm like, you must be into the mountains and everything. And he just looked at me like, what? I'm like, Denver. Yeah, Denver, Iowa. I'm like, that doesn't exist. You're just making that up now. Yeah, I didn't even know that existed.
We got to take a break. Jay Moore in about an hour. We'll get into Dylan Raiola because he was the talk yesterday as we search for people that have yet to talk about him. But is Nebraska just 2-0 because they have the ability not to make mistakes? Defense aside, is Nebraska 2-0 with their offense because they've had the ability just to not make mistakes? There's some interesting numbers about the offense through 2 games, which is still trying to figure everybody out. They're touchy-feely in their emotions. But there are some numbers that are a little bit, you wouldn't think Nebraska would be 2-0. But they haven't made any mistakes.
Yep.
Most important thing. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy as well. Dylan Raiola, who is the talk of everything, he was on ESPN, did a whole Sports Center block on him yesterday. Like they broke down film.
Mm-hmm.
That one of their NFL guys were breaking down film. Johnny Manziel released a podcast yesterday talking about Dylan Raiola, a guy that has started 2 games at Nebraska. And I don't want to discount some of the big boy throws he made on Saturday night, but 23 of 30, 185, 423 through 2 games, 3 scores. And I think the offense has a ways to go, but they've given you enough that you're like, okay, I should say they've done more than enough, but the possibilities are probably endless with this type of the offense.
Yeah.
But it is, I go back to what I teased earlier. The most heralded Nebraska freshman in football since, because he's got a different kind of name. It's not Joe Smith. It's not Jeff Sims.
It's not Kurt Dukes.
Not a knock on Jeff Sims.
Right.
But it's a different name.
Yeah.
It's a distinct look.
Yep.
It's the talent. It is the recruitment. It is the hope. It is the chatter that comes with Nebraska football that you first should mention the defense and then you mention the quarterback. But maybe the question it should be posed this way differently. Is he the quickest player ever at Nebraska to become a household name? I couldn't believe yesterday. I was flipping through the channels, and I mean, we're all aware of people are talking about Nebraska's quarterback in the good.
Yeah.
But ESPN, like, they were all in graphics, video. I'm like, man, this kid is becoming a household name sooner than I would have thought.
Yeah, I don't even think it's close. There were a lot of names that you kept your eye on when they arrived in campus, but to have the immediate impact, I don't think any of them come to mind. We talked about this earlier. Tommy Frazier would be the closest one of all positions too. I mean, not just making this a quarterback conversation, but that's the one that's obviously going to get the most attention. But everybody, and you're right. I do wonder if the Tommy Frazier part was different if we had the social media today.
Maybe Adrian. Now, I know it was a redshirt freshman year.
Yeah.
But he had a stage and performed and remembered the chatter early.
On Adrian or Taylor?
On Taylor,
yeah,
not Adrian.
Yeah.
I had the last name right. But the chatter after a couple of performances on a big stage and then through the roof after the K-State game on a Thursday night.
Yeah, so I would say from that standpoint, and this would be great if Dylan already has the attention based on 5-star guy making Nebraska his choice. We know the connection with the family and everything like that. It's all part of the story that everybody knows more than enough about. But as far as, you're right, what Taylor did is we were all interested of, all right, the guy actually started out on the defensive side. Now he's going to be in the mix with the quarterbacks. We know he can run. We want to see what he can do. And then like that, as soon as you saw the way that he ran, you saw the track speed within what? 2, because when was that Kansas State game? The second or third game of the season.
It was in October.
Was that game in October?
October.
That's right. It was. You're right.
But he'd had the Washington game.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking of. The Washington game is he. All of a sudden, you're like, damn. Okay, that's that type of speed, effective against Power 5 competition, and then like that. I mean, even going into the K-State game, there was a lot of conversation about him. It was just because it was on that Thursday night platform that everybody else was talking about him. If you could get the even further rise of Dylan Raiola because of performances like that in his true freshman year, oh, hell. Because it's not like these performances have been anything to kind of thumb your nose at. They've been exactly what Nebraska needs, but the buzz about Taylor is because he was putting up video game numbers. And maybe that's still in the cards for Dylan this year, but difference is Taylor got that quick rise to stardom because of his play in a small window of games, as opposed to Dylan having that built in, but all of a sudden showing, hey, he's worth the hype because of, again, I go back to something I said earlier, the preparation, those little things like that really get him a reputation.
Nebraska has a guy that is a professional playing quarterback in college.
Yeah, 19 years old.
They have a pro quarterback that's playing college quarterback. Someone asked him, it wasn't yesterday, I think they asked him about his day. It might have been NBC. I don't know if it made the airwaves, but it was a clip that was shared on Twitter. They asked him about class and whatever, because he'll talk about being in the facility early.
Yeah.
He is a quarterback that grew up as a quarterback, that graduated from the school of quarterbacking, that is happened to be playing in college, but wants to be a pro quarterback, that has already started how you act as a pro quarterback. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he goes to class. Actually, I do know he goes to class because he's in class with someone that I know that is like, hey, do you know who's in my class?
No.
I'm sure he's
taking. I can guess.
But I would be curious. I wonder if he's taken online, like majority of his classes are online. One thing he has done, going back to something we discussed earlier about when you look at that position at Nebraska, he has done something in a short amount of time that you can't go back. Can't go back. He has raised the standard of quarterback play at that school.
Mm-hmm. And you know why?
Well, because he's got a chance. He's got a vibe. That's why.
But also, go back to something that you said earlier of our standard of that position was so low. Colorado game is a perfect example of you start to raise the standard because you realize that I laugh because it's been said so many times, but it's actually playing out in 2 games. You don't have to be the Heisman Trophy winner. You don't have to be Superman. But the stat that I thought was most telling about why I love, other than the fact of zero turnovers, why I love what you're seeing in a gradual, what I think is going to be gradual progress throughout the year with Dylan, with still the opportunities for big boy plays, is that number of 18 of 18 for 96 yards against Colorado. That was perfect in passes of 10 yards or less. Think about that. You don't even have to be 100% completion percentage in those passes. Think if Nebraska was 75% completion percentage in those passes a year ago. The difference that would make, where you wouldn't be like, damn, Heinrich Harburg is a stud, but you would feel confident and comfortable with him in any situation if you're executing that part of the offense.
And it's a weird offense for 2 weeks, because what if I told you, with all of that said, and that guy running quarterback who is playing like a vet, that Nebraska, in terms of nationally through the first 2 weeks, offensive explosion plays way down near the bottom of the national rankings. Red zone efficiency way down at the bottom of the rankings. Third down conversions, somewhat middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
It's encouraging, but it's also that's why Saturday has to be. I think the defense is fine. The defense is giving you a chance to contend.
Yep.
Saturday will be about the offense if they can take the next step to figure things out.
Yeah, I would, and I would take that a step further, not just the offense specifically, like in general, because I think even so with the offense, like you are with the defense, which I think everybody should be confident with the defense, I'm confident that they can run the ball. I really am. And it's Saturday for me is about the passing game. When they have those opportunities, what are they doing? Who are they able to take advantage of from a matchup standpoint? I still really think Isaiah Nayor is going to be a difference maker. I think Jalen Lloyd is going to be a much bigger part going forward too. You saw that against Colorado, where he was on the field a lot more, and especially in big moments in that game. Those are guys. Jamal Banks, we've talked about as well, and I know yesterday a lot of his conversation was about the downfield and the perimeter blocking, but can he at least be a guy? I thought BC said something that would be, if you consistently get maybe a 5 to 6 catch, 50 to 75 yard production out of Jamal Banks a game, you'd like that. You really would, because of what you'd have next to him. But I think Saturday for me is what I'm watching. I want to continue to see the completion percentage be where it is, because I think that's another huge upgrade from what we've seen in the previous quarterback play. But also the big plays, the explosives that you talked about where Nebraska's lacking, because if you can't do it against an FCS team and you're in week 3, that's got to be concerning going into the Illinois of the world. The teams that are going to identify your weakness offensively and really try to exploit it.
We got to take a break. We'll come back more on this because chew on this. I know it's 2 games and just hop on the hype train. Current quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Is there any that you would trade for who's the quarterback at Nebraska? You haven't been able to say that in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. And also feel for our friends over in Iowa City when it comes to quarterbacks. Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone.
Halftime is brought to you by the Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, which will be taking place on September 28th, downtown Hilton. Largest celebration of whiskey in the region. We'll also have Big Red overreaction following the Purdue game over there, and also your chance in the 9 o'clock hour to win pair passes to Omaha Whiskey Fest with a Whiskey Wednesday.
Little traffic update.
Again?
Yeah, I might as well do
Jeez.
traffic on the show.
Yes.
You should tease everyone by saying everything's good.
Northbound 680 is at a crawl from 84th because of a multi-car crash.
Yeah.
Also, thank you to everybody that survives daily in this town. If you have to drive in the Saddle Creek, Leavenworth area, I don't know how, if you that is part of your daily commute.
This with floods.
If you survive, well, yeah, but they've got so much construction going on there because of the expansion of the med center. It is an absolute mess. You have to navigate that. You have to watch the cones. You can't go left. You can't go right. You can't get into Quick Trip. You don't know if you're on Leavenworth or you're somewhere else.
Can you give me a 5 to 10 mile radius around Omaha that is not under construction?
5 to that's a lot. 5 to 10 miles.
Yeah, you're asking for a lot.
I thought you're going to go blocks.
Okay,
Kansas.
give me
Iowa.
Give me a 2 to 3 mile radius.
You
That is
ask
not
a lot,
under
Nick.
construction. I don't think 3 miles is a lot.
It's
The point is, I don't think you can because it's not easy. Because everywhere you go, there's interruption with the cones. It's just where we are right now, trying to improve the city.
Yeah. Also, welcome in everybody. This is day number 4 of our mass exodus of bookmarks. Colorado fans were all over social media prior to last Saturday night. They were bookmarking all the tweets from Nebraska fans. A lot of Nebraska fans were doing the same. They went to turn in those receipts, and the Colorado fans all of a sudden disappeared. But welcome to day 4 of the mass exodus of bookmarks on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Interacted with a couple of Colorado fans the last couple of days.
Okay.
Some of them deny saying anything, saying, I knew this would happen.
Oh, of course.
Jay Moore is going to join us coming up at 9. Posed the question before we took that break with Nebraska's quarterback, which the encouraging thing about Nebraska's offense is I don't think they're anywhere near what they can be. They're still trying to, as I like to say, figure the pieces out. They've got a lot of variety. I think you have the stats up, or maybe you know this off the top of your head. I think there are 12 different players that have at least carried the football.
Oh.
And not just running backs or a quarterback. So they're still trying to where everything is moving pieces. But their ability not to make mistakes on that side of the ball is a reason why Nebraska is 2-0. And of course the quarterback, who might be talented enough that wide receivers take him for granted. I can be sloppy in my route running, but Dylan's still going to get me the football. But I posed this question, and this goes back to the rarity of having a quarterback who plays quarterback at the University of Nebraska, who is not an athlete that plays quarterback, that they actually have a quarterback that plays quarterback. Currently, 2 weeks into the season, is there anybody in the Big Ten? And this isn't a negative. Don't be afraid to dip your toe in the water there, Nick. Who you would trade Dylan Raiola for currently in the Big Ten? You would trade him away, and you would get their quarterback.
I think people would say. Okay, are we basing this on how the start that these quarterbacks are off to right now?
30-14 to the Big Ten now.
Then no. No, I wouldn't. I would, if before the season, I'd be like, yeah, I could use a year or two of Dylan Gabriel. I like Miller Moss, but not to the point that I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, give me him. I'm going to take Dylan Raiola off the roster. So I couldn't give you a definitive, this is who I would take. There are guys that, okay, would be interesting. Miller Moss and Dylan Gabriel would be two guys that I would put in there. But right now, based on the start that Oregon and Dylan Gabriel's off to? No, I would not.
Does Nebraska have a quarterback that can be really, really good without the assistance of a really, really good OC? Because let me give you some stats.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel is 59 of 70, 623, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But they have, like a duck walks. They've been wobbly
Waddle.
in their first couple of games. Then let me give you Will Rogers. Quietly, Washington, have you watched Washington play?
I have not watched 4 quarters of Washington football yet. So
they've got my interest.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't, they played Tom, Dick, and Harry the first 2 weeks.
And those guys are down this
But
year.
Will Rogers
They're
is
related to
41
William
of
and Mary.
52 for 511, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, I will give you a guy who I think is paired with a really, really good OC, Kansas's former OC. Drew Aller is off to a good start. So 24-37, 420, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. But here's the other part of the Penn State offense. If you watch them, and they scuttled a little bit against Bowling Green, but they looked great the week before against West Virginia. They're actually throwing the ball down the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've gone from, hey, let's throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. They're utilizing some really good wide receivers at Penn State, and so they're throwing the ball down the field. And I think their yards per attempt is maybe in double figures.
Yeah.
When was the last time that happened at Penn State under a Franklin quarterback?
Right, it hasn't. The other guy that I would throw in there, I wouldn't trade him, but he will be Nebraska's problem next week. And Luke Altmaier has been actually very, very efficient so far. 0 interceptions too. And Luke Altmaier, it was believed that if Illinois was to have any type of shot of getting to a bowl game this year and being in the mix for anything, that it'd be Luke Altmaier. He's off to a good start. And, it wasn't like it's been all cream puffs. They had Kansas last week. So,
technically their resume is better than Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Miller Moss is 48 of 66, 607, just 2 touchdown passes. Didn't have to do much against Utah State. But that USC, 2 things. One, they made a very good hire on defense. They've only given up 20 points, and that was against LSU because they blew out Utah State 48-0. They have thrown to 15 different receivers through 2 games.
Miller Moss's receiving core, especially, everybody knew about Branch, but they're skill position players. And I think we were talking about this after they beat to open up the season when they took down LSU. You don't worry about their skill position players. It's more about what their defense will look like. But Miller Moss, you saw it a little bit at the end of last year too. You don't usually worry about quarterbacks under Lincoln Riley. Is he a great head coach? Probably remains to be seen with USC right now, but the guy can coach quarterbacks. So that's where I would say Miller Moss, seasoned wise, is probably a guy that is going to give you a lot of plus because with a 72% completion percentage too, I get fixated on that part of it. Probably not necessarily early in the season like I am right now, but as we get to mid and end of the season, how that looks, because that's been, what have we ever seen anything get out of the 60s? What was Casey? Was Casey low 60s?
Place where you go to get breakfast pizza?
I think he was like 62, 63%?
Somewhere in that range.
Right around there. Because that efficiency right there, and love what I'm seeing with Dylan when it comes to that too, but that efficiency with the completion percentage, it's not the end all be all, but in certain offenses, especially with Nebraska and where that has been a big time problem when it comes to the simple passing game, that's something that I probably look at too much because of what Nebraska has lacked over years.
So that's a good phrase, simple pass game, because I don't think they have not taken the regulator off their quarterback yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 42 of 57, 423, 3 picks, 0 interceptions. Hadn't turned the ball over in the first 2 games of his career.
Mm-hmm.
But this offense has only 7.4 yards per attempt. That's very middling.
Mm-hmm.
They've tried to take some deep shots. But their offensive explosion plays, only about 11% of their plays are that, and that's 90th in the country. Red zone, points per trip into the red zone is less than 4, which is 97th in the country. And you could say, hey, they're scoring from outside of the red zone. I get it, but I'm using this as a reference. And they haven't been great on third down. It's been I don't know. I'm going to say it's a jumbled start to the offense. I think it gives you enough where you're more positive than negative of, oh, man, this isn't going to be fixed. Again, I think they're just still figuring things out. Another thing that Nebraska has to figure out, and they'll benefit from not having Big 12 incompetent referees working games in the future, is they are 111th in the country in penalties.
Yeah. And
penalty yards, that is.
And yeah, because you're looking at from the standpoint of 15. So the total on the season is 15 for 140 yards. But again, that doesn't take into effect what we were discussing earlier in the week.
Well, let's just say
the runs that were taken away.
Half those penalties on Saturday night are real. So there's 6.
Yeah. And still, those are, was it the first drive of the game against UTEP? Exciting, but you do get the false start there too. So there have been moments where, there have been obvious penalties in the 2 games that have really put in, again, I'm not overly concerned about what Dylan has to overcome when it comes to down and distance, but to this conversation right now, the offense as a whole, are we ready to say, hey, you know what? They are much better equipped for second and third and long than they were a year ago just because of the quarterback. Yeah, you could say the quarterback is upgraded, but with the personnel around them and what the offensive line, there's still a lot that remains to be seen when it comes to that.
So what this is leading me up to is I'm actually backing up what Matt Rule said. Is the quarterback has played well, the offense has not been consistent enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm getting. That's the end. That's the end of this discussion is backing up. Because I when Rule said that, I was like, okay, that's awful interesting to put that out there where you haven't built up your freshman quarterback. And then all of a sudden you've made that about him. They doubled down yesterday. So I went and looked at the numbers and the quarterback has played well, but the offense as a whole hasn't been consistent through 2 weeks.
Well, and you asked the question.
You scored what? All but 10 of your points in that, right? All but 10 of your points have been in the first half?
Yep. You asked the question also, are they 2-0 simply because he's taking care of the football? And the offensive numbers would lead you to believe like, well, no, they're just tearing it up. No, obviously that's not the case. I go back to last year, the first 2 games right out of the gate. Nebraska wins it. They don't turn the football over against Minnesota. Nebraska against Colorado said this last week that if they don't turn the ball over at the frequency that they did, especially early in that game, and then when they try to make, they come right back out in the second half, that game is still a game after Jeff Sims' 59-yard touchdown run. But then again, you get sloppy with the football. I'm convinced that is a game in the fourth quarter if they don't turn the ball over at the frequency that they did. So could Nebraska have been 2-0 out of the chute last year if you simply take care of the football? I think the answer is yes.
Ability to not make mistakes while you're trying to figure things out is another part of Nebraska being 2-0 with a dominant, looks familiar in the good old days type of defense that is physical, that beats people up, and that when the opposing team, their coach shows up on a Tuesday at a press conference and he starts to read off their injuries, they go out, 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 out. That's a sign about Nebraska's defense. I don't want to be, I'm not a violent person. I'm more of a lover. But when the days of old where Nebraska would beat you up and they would hurt guys and they would break guys and the injury report would be out, questionable, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Look at what they did to Colorado.
Yep.
Deion spent some time yesterday going through his, let's see, safety is out. We're going to have a cornerback wide receiver that is out. We have a running back that is out. They put guys out of the game. So defense, don't have a worry about. It's the offense that is still trying to figure things out. The other part of this equation is when was the last time that 17 or 13 other teams in the Big Ten, or at the time, 11 other teams, would say, oh, I would trade my quarterback for Nebraska's quarterback? Because don't you think over in Iowa City, where they're trying to figure out, are we going to have to play McNamara and Sullivan?
Yeah.
The quarterbacks didn't meet with the media yesterday after they lost Iowa State. McNamara was, I'm not even going to say pedestrian. I'm going to say he was like stuck in the middle of the crosswalk type of quarterback play, is that they would trade their quarterback for Nebraska's quarterback.
Oh my
in a
God,
heartbeat.
yeah.
They might actually trade their quarterback for 17 others in the league.
Yeah, they might trade it for Heinrich Haarberg as Nebraska's backup
People
quarterback.
forget Heinrich Haarberg 5 for 5.
And he won 5 games last year too.
Do you know that Heinrich Haarberg has won more games against FBS competition than Shadur Sanders?
Yes, those are facts, by the way. I think there are a couple of teams when Nebraska had Tommy Armstrong. There's probably a couple of teams that were similar to Iowa that were in quarterback purgatory. Not Iowa at that time. I feel like they liked their guy in CJ Beathard, but I don't think you would look at a good amount of teams right now, or even 2 or 3 teams, and look at Nebraska's quarterback history and say, yeah, we would rather have their guy. Like, okay, if they're having struggles with their own, they're going to go through the struggles with their own as opposed to getting the struggles of another guy that maybe has some potential. But I don't know, maybe Adrian would have been a guy that some Big Ten schools that were struggling would say, okay, I'd take Adrian because of what he can do from an athletic perspective. But it's kind of nice because I know what you're getting at here. It's kind of nice to have a guy that is, as a 19-year-old, as a true freshman, is making decisions, at least early on in his very first college football snaps, is making decisions like that of a 20, 21-year-old who's been playing for a couple of years. And boy, what a difference that can make as far as your confidence level. And I think that trickles over to the defensive side as well. I think if that group, and they're going to do their thing regardless because they went through it last year, the quick change defense, they know what they're capable of in any situation. But I think it does give them an extra little comfort feeling. Now, Dylan said the defense provides him comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the exact same thing with the defense too. Of if this kid isn't going to be erratic with the football and he's going to put us in some really tough decisions where we're defending a short field, damn, that's a great feeling. We're getting our rest on the side. We're rotating the way we need to. We don't have to defend 30 yards of football. We can defend 70, 75 yards of football more often than not. I think all that stuff matters. So as much as he says they are a comfort, I think he's a comfort to them.
Nebraska football, Rule might be the coach of the year. Nebraska football, their quarterback through 2 games has 1 yard rushing, and they're 2-0. Think about it. Talking amongst your friends. Thank you, Ed. He said yes. 12 different players have carried the ball through the first 2 weeks of the season.
That is correct, yes.
All right. Break time. Jay Moore is going to join us in a little bit. He is a black shirt. He's very proud of the defense. And there is more of how good can Nebraska's defense be as the competition ramps up, or we now look at some of the offenses and go, maybe not as good as we thought. We'll dive into that with Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel as well on 1620 The Zone. The Big East basketball schedule must be ready to come out like today or tomorrow, if I'm judging off John Rothstein.
What's he saying now? Is he on a countdown?
No, it's almost like somebody gave him the Big East conference schedule and the Big Ten conference schedule, because he put out there Nebraska plays Indiana at PBA like December 13th. Indiana will be a preseason top 25 team. He was releasing part of the Big East schedule last night, like bits and pieces. Creighton's first Big East game, according to John Rothstein, is December 18th in D.C. against Georgetown.
Oh, yeah. And so, because I just saw a little bit ago, he said Marquette will open Big East play on December 18th.
So someone must have given him both conference schedules, and bit by bit, he is putting them out
slow
there
drip.
like he has insider. So I wonder if the Big East schedule is coming out today or tomorrow.
I'd hope so. Otherwise, that thing will be out by John Rothstein's Twitter account before the thing is actually officially released. Because you're right. You're getting I'm now just going back to previous tweets. It is. It's like a slow drip.
Mm-hmm.
This is when this will happen. This is when that will happen. And then he talks about the debate.
Does he really?
He makes a mention of David Muir.
What's he got with David Muir?
Let's see.
He doesn't age.
He said, "Does David Muir work in the college basketball media too? Not familiar with his work."
What?
Someone goes, David Muir and John Rothstein,
Brokaw.
both products of Ithaca College, and both equally hard at work tonight. I believe that was probably a little sarcasm by one John Rothstein. Probably made a T-shirt about it too.
John Rothstein gets killed by the Creighton guys. Not the Creighton basketball family, but
The fans.
no, like DeMarinis and Jacob.
Okay.
They just crush Rothstein.
Haven't they been blocked?
Bigelow has. I don't
Bigelow.
think Padilla has. Then again, I don't know. John
A
Rothstein.
lot of people the last couple of
everyone.
days are trying to figure out if they're blocked or not by Scott Shanley.
So that actually took off pretty well on Monday from our buddy Sean. He was just asking a good question. It was a fair question.
That's true.
People have inquired.
Did have a bunch of notifications.
Don't have anything wrong with Scott. He hasn't blocked me or anything.
Yeah.
He just he was a regular guest. We didn't really talk much Husker football, except for when Rule was hired, and then during the season a little bit. But it was more NFL throughout the entire year, and we don't know what happened. It wasn't like a bad show, and he wasn't happy. It was well after Rule had been hired. So Scott said his piece, laid it out why he felt that way, and we didn't really revisit it. We were talking more NFL.
Said he was going on vacation to Hawaii,
and something happened. He never returned our texts, never came back on the show. I don't have a problem with him. I don't have any beef. I know he was back.
Lost.
He was back in St. Ed a couple times this summer. So I don't know what happened. He's welcome to come back on the show, but after Nebraska starts 2-0, there were a lot of people that were inquiring about where is Scott Shanley.
So
I wonder if he'd come back for a game.
There's tickets available Saturday.
I would think he would. Yeah, he can go. We might have
Go with the Handleys.
We might actually have an extra ticket up for grabs.
The Handleys and Scott Shanley.
One person may or may not be able to make it, and it's on my credit card.
If you had a chance to have a former Husker go to the game with you, you'd charge him?
No, I'd say this one.
That'd be a very awkward.
It's on the arm.
It'd be a very awkward row.
Yeah.
Be like, by the way, here's my Venmo.
You'd be like, for what?
You can give me whenever you got time.
They should do a promotion.
Take a Husker to a game with you?
For $18.90.
Hey, okay.
Not a current player, because that'd be a little bit
weird.
Like you can't say I'd like to go to the game with Raiola. I mean, you'd probably have to explain that to Rule.
Busy.
But for a donation to $18.90, you can watch a game at Memorial Stadium with a former player.
I would love that.
That's a good idea.
The opportunities are endless on which player you would select to take to Memorial Stadium to watch a game.
So this was
Corey McEwen.
Hey, that's Shafe's guy.
Oh yeah, buddies with him.
Yeah.
Corey lives here in Omaha.
This was odd. So at the Bears game on Sunday, and this ties into Nebraska because Mike Brown, who doesn't go to a lot of games. A lot of the former players are there because they were also replaying the Steve McMichael Hall of Fame ceremony, and Devin Hester. That was kind of like part of pregame stuff. he was sitting in the stands with regular fans. He was down the sideline before the
on
game.
brand for Mike Brown.
Yeah, he was down on the sideline before the game, but then during the game was actually sitting behind the end zone, but not lower bowl. Like he was just amongst the fans, and he had a Devin Hester shirt on.
Awesome.
But I don't know how many Bears fans, because he had hat on backwards, had sunglasses, and just a Devin Hester shirt. I don't know how many fans actually would have recognized him because he was just amongst them. Like if I'm sitting there, I think I would like to think I would recognize Mike Brown, but I do wonder, depending on what age group was around him, if they were like, the whisper thing, I think I'm sitting next to Mike Brown. Do I ask him? Looks like him. I don't know.
And they say, wait, are you the Mike Brown that played for the Utah Jets? No. Different Mike Brown.
You're the Mike Brown that coaches the Sacramento Kings?
I think it'd be champion Mike Brown.
I think it'd be kind of fun.
There are two players, and I'm just pointing out these two. There are probably others. There are two players that I think don't get enough credit. One less than the other. You're not going to get much of a debate that Mike Brown is one of the better defensive backs that's ever played at Nebraska.
He was really good.
Yep.
Really good.
But in the big discussions about the best of the best, I think there are two players because they just didn't like talking to the media. That wasn't their thing. They just liked the ball. That if they were more in the media world and they talked to the media when they were playing at Nebraska, not post, but playing at Nebraska, I think they would have been more front of mind. Ken Clark. Ken Clark is one of the better running backs that's ever played at Nebraska, but Ken just wanted to play football. Like after games, even the Oklahoma State game where he went against Barry Sanders, hey, you're being requested. Ken's like, nah, I'm good. Walks up the back stairs out of South Stadium and goes and meets friends and family, and he's on his way. Yeah. The late Ken Clark. Ken Clark, one of the better running backs, but probably doesn't get mentioned a lot because he never really talked to the media. But if you know, you know. And then Mike Brown. Mike Brown didn't like talking to the media. I remember having to interview him one time, and he voice was really, really quiet. Super nice guy.
Yeah.
But that just wasn't his thing.
That was the same in Chicago, too.
And Mike Brown's a dude. Mike Brown is one of the, he's in your top 3 defensive backs all time at the University of Nebraska.
Yeah.
But he didn't talk to media very much. So people don't immediately go, best players, best defensive players.
That's a good point.
Sue, Gregory, DDD.
Yeah.
David did it. Mike Brown.
That's a good point.
That's cool that he was in Chicago. Because he doesn't, he's been back here, but it's very quiet. They don't come in hardly any fanfare, just wants to watch the game, maybe hang with some fellas that he played with.
Yeah, and
that's cool that he was at the Bears game.
Totally respect that. I thought it was, he was essentially sitting in seats that I believe I've sat in that area before, and I was wondering what I would have done if I would have saw him, because I'm looking at what he's wearing. He seemed like he was enjoying himself. There was a couple other guys that he was with. I want to say like Vasher might have been there too, but it just didn't stick out at all. And I have no problem with that. Like, I think there are certain people that when they come to, say, either Nebraska or you go to a big media market at the NFL level, that it's a bit intimidating or overwhelming when it comes to the media obligations or the amount of attention that fans actually pay when it comes to stuff just outside of football. And if you're not used to it, you're not used to it. And it doesn't, I don't think it says anything really about you on the type of a player or person that you are. I actually respect when guys go in and out. There's zero publicity of that because they just like ball. They want to see it, and they don't really want to be bothered by that. And if someone does approach them, they're like, hey, I'm just here to watch the game and stuff. I know that sometimes that comes across as like, oh, but no, this is the life they've lived.
Whenever I bring up Mike Brown, you also have to talk about Ralph Brown.
Yep. Oh gosh.
Ralph Brown is, so I don't think Ralph Brown wants to be found. Played in Nebraska, played in the NFL. He then got into media. He was working for KLKN in Lincoln, so he would come back every game. I would sit near him, and I've known Ralph for a long time. And we would talk, and he would talk about his aspirations about getting into media. He would like to do NFL. He had a nice little NFL career. And then, because he would come on the show quite a bit.
Yeah, I talked to him on a regular basis as well.
And then he just fell off the face of the earth. And his name was not brought back until, if you watch Selling Sunset on Netflix, his ex-wife, Amanda Smith, she was trying to get full custody of their kids because he had disappeared.
Yeah.
And this is, what are we, about 7-8 years? I contend that Ralph Brown does not want to be found. You know, I don't know if there's a missing persons report out there for him.
That's what I was going to ask.
But,
I mean, do we know if he's okay?
So I don't think Ralph Brown has been heard from since, I don't know, 10 years?
I think it's a little more recent than that.
If someone disappears like that, they don't want to be found.
Well, yeah. And that's where, when that was all being talked about, that no one could find him, that I was hoping, okay, has anybody at least checked on him, like people close to his family, to at least know that he's still with us? Because
they are. So he's still with us because his grandparents know his whereabouts.
Okay. And at one point, I know that was a concern of people talking about it. He still hadn't heard anything from him. But yeah, I think it was more recent than 10 years, because we used to talk to him regularly as well. And
yeah, I guess it would be, 10 years would be 14, yeah.
He was, and you're right, because he really did start getting into, he's doing a little bit of the TV side in Lincoln, but also he was like more than willing to come on weekly segments. Like he would commit to a year of coming on weekly and being able to look at the defense and try to, do sessions on radio, breaking that down. And he was a fun guy to talk to. Like I really enjoyed, I didn't know him as the player. And like when you got to cover those guys, I didn't know him at that level, but he was always really good to us. And yeah, I just remember texting, not hearing anything back, which happens, and that's just part of it. But then starting to hear people raise concern about his whereabouts and if he was okay. When you start hearing, man, have you guys heard, is Ralph Brown doing okay? Then you're like, what the hell's going on? So yeah, that's, but you're right. Between those two, some of the best defensive backs we've ever seen ever to play for Nebraska, like ever.
So my last communication with Ralph Brown was 2014.
Okay, so it was exactly 10 years ago.
Yeah, and then I sent him a text that was never responded to. So I didn't know, because little insight. I kind of liked Selling Sunset when it was on Netflix. Now I haven't watched.
Never watched.
Like it's branched off, and I think I stopped after season 3.
Mm-hmm. It kind of got off the tracks.
Season 2, when they had his now ex-wife was on there.
I do remember that.
Part of the storyline was she was trying to get full custody of her kids, and her husband played in the NFL. And then someone was like, her husband is a former Husker.
Yeah.
And then that's where it became, no one knows where he's at. Like, except for his grandparents and Ralph's parents, they know where he's at, but he turned off all communication with them. So I don't think he wants to be found.
Yeah.
But that's a story that is such like a mystery that people are afraid to talk about. Like freaking Ralph Brown just disappeared.
Yeah.
Former Husker, was back. He was around the program. He was in television. Wanted to be, he told me he had a tryout with Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to do like, I don't know, NFL Europe or something, like to get reps.
Yeah.
And then he just disappeared. So I know this was about Mike Brown, but whenever I think of Mike Brown, I always think of Ralph Brown because they were together. They were the Brown brothers.
It was about if we could,
related.
It was about if we could have a former player sit with us in the stands.
Ralph Brown. If you could get Ralph Brown to sit with you in the stands against Northern Iowa,
you have accomplished something.
Stop the game and let's talk about Ralph Brown. Jay Moore going to join us here in a little bit. Brandon Vogel as well on 1620 The Zone.
And the four-quarter pick'em is officially open. You can make your picks now to get a piece of the prize of $25,000. Play now and learn more at 1620thezone.com.
You know how we were talking about cookies and donuts yesterday?
And then bagels, apparently.
Yeah, that poll was
Somebody-
not close. By the way, forgot
somebody
about our
said
poll
bagel.
this morning. Colorado football right now leads at 56-44. That'll be up there. Everyone can vote all
Greater
day.
than the Tommy Goes to School
Somebody said
reality show.
in the discussion about burning cookies or donuts, they said bagels.
Yeah, remember right when we ended, somebody had chimed in with, we called them bagels.
Yeah, a lot of carbs.
Like, that's just silly.
Well, I ran into somebody who might be the only person in the world yesterday.
Oh, that's cool.
And this discussion, I don't know how we got to this point. It began with football, and they may have been trying to make a point. I met the only person in the world that said paper, rock, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors.
They
Was it
said
Spock?
paper, rock, scissors.
No.
And I said, you are one of one.
Yeah.
And left it at that.
Are they
Are they
a lefty?
I would not know.
Just asking.
They were making
We're kind of a different breed.
They were making a point. It was actually about the Nebraska's offense.
Oh,
Tie it back.
And
who's the paper?
they said, it's like, just like playing paper, rock, scissors. And I was like, no, rock, paper, scissors. And they're like, no, paper, rock, scissors.
Mm-mm.
I'm like, no one has ever in my lifetime referred to it as that. I think maybe you just,
Do they eat cream and cookies ice cream?
fumbling.
You just remembered all three elements, and you're like, I don't know what.
Jelly and peanut butter sandwiches?
I said, you are the only person in the world that ever has messed that up.
Drink a little juice and gin?
I'm like, no. It's paper, rock, scissors.
So
I'm
he
like,
was.
no, it's not. It's
Yeah.
rock, paper, scissors. Then, it came back and forth, and I'm like, hey, good luck this weekend.
I mean, we've used donuts, I'm sorry, we've used cookies. That was more of a part of the way we would describe it in my circle, literally as well. But donuts makes more sense.
Used to watch.
So
that
I can
one.
understand if someone would say cookie, like, oh yeah, I've heard that. That I've never heard. I'd like to be a little bit more open minded, but that I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that person had a stroke or something.
Just a little wrap up on the Ralph Brown discussion. Living in the Pacific Northwest, but as I thought, when someone disappears like that, they don't want to be found.
Mm-hmm.
But he is alive, at least of a few years ago, living in Oregon. Jay Moore, very much alive. He's got a little extra giddy up in his step because Nebraska's defense is playing well. We'll get his thoughts on what he saw Saturday night and what this game on Saturday night means for Nebraska against Northern Iowa. More than being 3-0. We'll dive into Jay's brain after this on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, fall's just around the corner. 1620 The Zone, giving you the chance to win season passes to Nebraska's favorite fall attraction, Vala's Pumpkin Patch. Win 2024 season passes to Vala's and enjoy all the fall family fun at Vala's. Enter to win right now at 1620thezone.com. Talking to, where is Jay at today? So we've had Jay outside. We've had Jay rolling dirty in his car, and now he's just back in the office. It's kind of just boring setting right now. But Jay Moore, black shirt, joining us. Jay, how we doing on a Wednesday?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I got in the office a little earlier this morning. I feel like, the acoustics in a car are always pretty good, but I think the offices can be even better. So got in here to get some work done this morning and chit-chat about a fantastic win on Saturday by the Big Red.
You're just giving us all the perspectives of Jay's life on a Wednesday. We had, again, the outside, then you're in the car, looked pretty nice car, nice setup. Now you're being business Jay today. I get it. Let people know.
Try to get all aspects right.
So I heard this last night on Big Red Wrap Up. And I think there are a lot of fans and a lot of people that were following this game that would echo your sentiments of just getting their voice back. So you're good there. I know that you were heavily involved in rooting for the Big Red on Saturday, but I got to start with defense. You knew what the matchup would be going in. You saw what played out. As far as your biggest concern in the game against Colorado and how Nebraska looked in being able to counter that, what did you come away with on Saturday from the defensive side?
Yeah, that we're pretty darn good on the defensive side of the football. One of the best offenses we'll see all year. Now, I think what USC has and what Ohio State has is more well-rounded. But from a wide receiver core, I don't know if Nebraska is going to face anything better than what Colorado has. But my biggest concern was, can they get home with 4? And they obviously did. I mean, I figured if Nebraska can get home with 4 in the pass rush and even 5, that they'd be fine in the back end because you have 6 or 7 guys in coverage to handle – Horn and Hunter and just that explosive crew that they have. And that was the case. I mean, from the first series, from the first snap of the game, I mean, they were in the backfield all day. Couldn't run the football, knew they wouldn't be able to run the football. So Nebraska would probably be able to pin their ears back. But the ability just to when you can keep 6, 7 guys back in the back end, you can do so much more with coverages. And that's what they did. That's what they were able to do to shut down those guys and really not do much. I mean, hold that offense. I know the offensive line has issues and they're struggling to run the football, but to hold that offense with, I think they had 260 total yards. I mean, less than 275 yards. That's doing something. Now you could say, yeah, offensive line issues. Yeah, they can't run the football, but still, they tore up some defenses last year with a lot of the same players. So very, very encouraged. I think I knew what this defense was going to be. I just think probably from a national side of it, I think people are like, okay, they're legit. Those 11 guys, or they played much more than 11 guys. That defense, that Tony White defense is legit and gonna be tough to deal with all year.
Yep. Why does and this is probably something that comes up every time we watch Nebraska play a team that'll spread them out and likes to play in space. Why do you think this team that has been under the direction of Tony White now for 14 games, Jay, they just tackle well?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it is in them on that side of the ball that we used to spend hours talking about Nebraska's issues tackling? Nebraska went and spent all this money on a tackling system. We're 14 games into the Tony White era, and we don't really even talk about tackling issues.
Mm-hmm. They work on it. It's a mentality, but they work on it. They practice it. They practice physical. I mean, they're getting after it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday during the week. So you got to work at it. And it's just, and you have an older defense helps, but everyone comes with bad intentions. And that's what leads to good tackling is you come there and you're trying to take the guy's head off. You're trying to take him out. You're not just kind of half stepping. I hope I can make the tackle. I hope someone else can, get around me to help me take this guy down. It's like, no, I'm gonna go make this play. So I think it's a mentality thing. They've embraced a much more mentally tough mentality than we've seen in the past, and they work at it. And I think they embody everything about what this defense does with this staff. They're intense. They're hard on them. I mean, Tony White said it yesterday, in the press conference. It's Tuesday. We're the worst defense in America. They don't allow them to get complacent. They don't allow them to, feel themselves right, to get big headed. They're gonna build them up during the week as it gets close to the game. Build them up, and then knock them right back down starting on Sunday when they review the film. So I think it's a mix of it. Yeah, the tackling has been, knock on wood, right, has been really, really good through the 14 games of the Tony White era.
The tackling, Gary brought this up when we were talking on Monday about some of the defensive takeaways too, and in the pick six alone. If you look at both John Bullock and Isaac Gifford, what they took away, the attention to detail on this defense and assignment sound, the football IQ of this defense, Jay, is what I want to get your thoughts on, because I know it starts with how the defensive coordinator and all the position coaches, how they lay all of that out. But when you look at the football IQ at every level, even from the younger guys that are still getting, well, I guess everybody's still getting used to this defense because they're on the same boat. But is that an area that you've even seen improve here in the short part of this season compared to last year, where it was still relatively high?
Yeah, I think, again, that speaks to, I think obviously having older guys on your defense, that helps. You have 6-year guys on the defense that help, but you see a lot of young guys. We saw this last year with Cam Lenhart, Princewell, some guys in the secondary were able to come in, Raleigh Van Pop, a lot of young guys come in and play at a very high level. So I think what they do, because you can make defenses as complicated as you want them. And let's be honest, the 3-3-5 can be rather complicated just because of tons of moving parts. But I think what this staff has done a really, really good job of is their message, right? And how they get that information across and how they prepare. I think there's an element of football where you can go in the meeting. You teach it in the meeting room, right? X's and O's on the whiteboard. You got to transition from that to a walkthrough. You got to be able to get yourself out there, get familiar with it, and then take it to the practice field against the scout team or the first or second team offense. And then you got to do it in a game. So I think these guys firmly have grasped that process. And it's not there's no storm that goes left unturned. I mean, it's like I said, it's a meeting room. The guys are cued in. Guys are cued in at walkthroughs. Walkthroughs are some of the most important times. That's, for me as a player, that's where I learned the best, was a walkthrough. Drawing it up on a whiteboard, sitting there at a chair, a lot of times it would go over my head. I had to go through it, right? See myself in a certain technique, where I'm going. It just helps the brain. But then you have to be able to do it in the practice field. So I think how they've gotten the information across to the players, but also not in a way that bogs them down. It still allows them to play fast. But I think the maturity of the team helps. And like I said, they're hard on, they're tough on them, and they demand a lot. Just being at a few practices, they expect a lot out of these guys, and they got to answer the bell every day. And they're ringing it, man. This defense is ringing that bell, and they're fun to watch, and it's fun to know that you can rely on them, for 4 quarters.
You got a football coach, Jay, that at 2-0, and we're all curious on how they're going to handle success when people are talking about them, and it's not just the quarterback. We're talking about multiple guys on that team. How do they handle that attention? But you've got a football coach that talks about that, but then gets into the details on Monday, post a nice win where people are still patting you on the back, and goes in depth on some of the minor details about wide receiver play, route running and blocking. Something or nothing that he has pointed that out, and it was pointed out last year with that group of wide receivers.
No, I think there's something to that. I think this is what this staff will do. And like I said, Tony White making the comment like, hey, we're the worst defense in America on Tuesday. It's always finding something, right, that can get better. You got to recognize the good, but you always got to recognize what can be better. And there's never a perfect game. That was about as close to a perfect first half by them that they played. And it could have been even better. They left a lot of points out there, penalties. But, yeah, the edge blocking by the wide receivers needs to be better. But I think they'll always find something to almost make a mountain out of a molehill type aspect, because they don't want these guys to get too high on themselves. And I think – not like I don't think they're this team that with maturity they're ever going to go there. because they haven't won football games in a long time. So I think the psychology and that aspect of it all, if there's anybody that is going to knock them down a peg or two and not make sure the heads don't get too big, it's going to be Matt Rule, and that's his messaging to the media after practice or after a game, his messaging, on Monday mornings when they're getting ready for the next game plan and install. There's always going to be something that he's going to make sure that their attention is going to be there to not allow them to think ahead and get complacent. So I'm not too concerned about, even heading into this week, right? A little hangover effect. I think there's enough that this team needs to work on that they're going to be keyed in, Saturday night.
Jay, Marcus Satterfield yesterday, and this goes back to what Matt Rule said on Monday, and then Marcus Satterfield also doubling down on the perimeter blocking. And he had mentioned, I thought this was interesting, that this had been a problem in fall camp, and now they're seeing it play out in games where it's just been kind of sloppy, inconsistent. It's an area that they know they need to improve on. And I know you being as a defensive guy, not necessarily on that side of it, but also understanding when something shows up in the fall and now you're early in the season and you're seeing it showing up in games. If you're trying to get this as a quick fix before you get into conference play, what's the realistic expectation if there is a weak spot there, especially when it comes to blocking like that, that is something that can be fixed in a matter of time, that it doesn't burn you or really impact you in a major way when it comes to the competition that will be here before we know it?
Yeah, I don't think it's an earth, it's not a total reset. Again, just like tackling, blocking's a mentality. And let's be honest, wide receivers probably don't really want to block. Yeah. They just want to catch the ball and look good doing it. But that's the best ones take it personal. And Jamal Banks and Nayar should be unstoppable blocking out there, because they're giant human beings out there. They should win every matchup. But it's a mentality. But you got to practice it and you got to work at it. So I'm guaranteeing you right now, they're probably practicing right now and they're on them. I guarantee you that wide receivers, the coach, I'm blanking on his name, Garrett McGuire he is on them. Coach Satterfield is on them. And I think they can get it. And if there's a week to get it and get it figured out and get some confidence in doing it, it's this week. So I think we'll be able to run the football against Northern Iowa, but it's got to improve. There's even though we look at this, the next 5 games, or 4 after this one, Illinois looks improved. Purdue's definitely improved. Indiana's going to be tough. So they gotta get the blocking right on the edge. Then get the special teams things figured out too. Otherwise, there'll be some close calls here in the Big Ten.
Hey, you played in these type of games before. You played against Western Illinois. You played against Nicholls State. Nebraska's playing Northern Iowa. They're ranked. There's a lot of respect for them in the inner walls by the coaches. And I think a reminder of, hey, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. This is college football. Anything can happen. How do you, as a player, approach these weeks when that guy that is, you're a frontline starter, but that guy that is 4th string, this is his next opportunity to play, and you want to help him out, but you got to deal with, they put on their pants the same way. They got scholarship guys on the other side. How do you approach this week from a player standpoint when you're playing an FCS team?
Yeah, exactly the same way they approached the last 2 weeks, and I hopefully the same way they approach, the next 9 games after this. That's what good teams do. That's what mature teams do. They don't put any one opponent on a pedestal. You should approach them all the same. Your preparation should be exactly the same Monday through Friday. How you recover throughout the week and how you take care of body should be exactly the same. But this is a game. If I remember playing Nicholls State my senior year. I think that was our second game. And our very next game we had to go to USC, right? In 06. So that was like, oh my gosh, let's just get this game over. And it was a hard week of practice because Nicholls State ran like veer triple option stuff you don't ever see. So it was a tough week of practice because how you had to play the offensive linemen and making sure you had to keep them off the linebackers and all this stuff. So I remember going into Thursday practice and be like, God dang, I feel like I played a game already. But you have to approach it, no matter what. You have to respect them. You always got to respect your opponent. And then what you want to do as a starter is earn to get that second half off, right? Earn to get that 4th quarter off. They earned that a bit, right, to that when it happened against UTEP. You know, they've got a ton of guys play through 1.5 quarters. You want to earn that ability. Go out there, take care of your business, make sure it's clean, make sure it's right, do it the right way. Don't have asset right, because you can get hurt. So you got to approach it the exact same way and earn that right to get off the field and see your pals that are backing you up go make some plays in the fourth quarter.
Couple things that, and we've talked about a little bit of it, but a couple of things that have still kind of remained a mystery as far as how it could impact and things that need to improve. Special teams has been a bit of a roller coaster as well. Jay, after 2 games and being a game away from conference play a week from this Friday against Illinois, what are you most concerned about as Nebraska gets into their final non-conference game and heading into conference play?
Yeah, I think special teams, I'm concerned. I think when you're getting a Big Ten play, and we've learned this now for, 10 plus years, that points are a premium, and you got to have a kicking game, right? You have to be able to have a guy that can get up there and get you 3 points when a drive stalls out. You got to be able to flip the field and pin an opponent deep. You have to be able to protect on punt, protect on field goal. You got to be able to take points off the board, and we've blocked more kicks on the field goal team in the last couple of years than I can remember. So very, very important. I think Coach Foley will get it right, though. I think the return game has gotten better. I haven't really seen it had a chance. I think they potentially could get one here in the next couple of weeks, punt return with IGC or with Barney on the kickoff returns. But it needs to be improved, because I don't care if you're playing Illinois, Purdue, Ohio State, or whatever, right? USC, you got to have the hidden yardage. You have to have it. You got to be able to flip the field, and you got to get points. And right now, I'm concerned. The kicking game, I don't know if it's Alvano or it's the other guy. You got a punt blocked against a safe look, which is unacceptable. That should never happen. Just little things, right? Attention. And special teams, just like run blocking for a wide receiver, it's all about attitude. It's not fun playing special teams. It's a grueling job. It's a gritty job, but it's how you approach it, and you got to do it the right ways. Otherwise, it can lose us some ball games later in the year.
Absolutely. Jay, we appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the week and Saturday night, and then it's on to the Big Ten for next Friday. As always, thank you, my friend.
Yep. See you guys. Talk to you next week.
That's Jay Moore, black shirt, pride of Elkhorn. Big Red wrap-up last night. Good show. They had Bill Bush on last night breaking things down. This is another week where practice is your key to performance. That's my coaching phrase.
It's good.
So, like if Rule doesn't really go there like past coaches about we had the best week of practice.
Yeah.
But if he says if we had a really good week of practice like on Thursday, then they're ready to play because practice leads to performance. In past, I think when Nebraska's played FCS opponents, they've thought, well, we have more talent. We're just going to win. Well, talent is different with this group because talent finally has direction and a plan. And so I'm not worried about a letdown. But as this season unfolds and Nebraska starts to stack things, just curious on how they handle success.
Yeah.
Because guys will be talked about in a positive way more than they ever have before. And they haven't heard that. And so do you wash it? Do you have the earmuffs on? Do you move forward, or do you let it? You start to read your headlines.
Yeah, you get lazy habits.
This is all new. I mean, they could help themselves by entering uncharted territories by the way they perform and the way people talk about them. And it's not just the quarterback. I think the quarterback can handle that, but it's other guys who have been talked about in a negative of that guy's a bum.
Right.
All of a sudden, like, man, that guy is great. That guy was awful at wide receiver, but at cornerback, that's an NFL guy.
Absolutely. I mean,
How did they ever think they were going to play him at wide receiver?
You've got an entire team that hasn't been 2-0. You win this week.
You know who has been 2-0? Your quarterback.
Yep. And that's a good point because that was brought up yesterday too.
He hasn't been around this stuff.
Right. And I think that's a lot of that is what you're hearing from the coaches too on how he prepares. He has a level of expectation. He wasn't just a high win percentage in high school because he was surrounded by so much good talent too. There's the preparation that goes there. But you brought up the new Nebraska. Well, we see the new Nebraska last week against Colorado. What does the new Nebraska look like? Matt Rule talks about trying to get from a winning football team to a championship level football team. it's those types of moments of what we've seen in the past where Nebraska would string a couple victories together and all of a sudden it was, that would go completely by the wayside. How they handle it with the more maneuverable part of their schedule. I'm not going to say easy. I will never say
that
easy.
Phrase. Good phrase.
I don't want to say easy because nothing with this schedule and with Nebraska football, until they get to that level, can you ever say, oh, this is the easy part of your schedule? What they do if they're stacking wins and how they come out the following week in preparation for the next team, it's going to tell you, Matt Rule, everything he needs to know about where they are getting closer and closer to that phase that he ultimately wants to be at. To me, this is a huge thing. And that's why I think Saturday is a very big game, because you don't want over sloppy play. You want, I like how Jay put that, of being able to earn the third or the fourth quarter off, because you have absolutely zero doubt by halftime. This is not a 7-7 ball game or 14-7 ball game at halftime. It is exactly what you thought it would be with the talent lining up on one side or the other.
I like that point too. I just think you have talent, it just needed direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have talent, you think you could win these kind of games against teams that aren't as deep as you.
Mm-hmm.
But they're gonna have 3 or 4 guys that are dudes that you go, man, I wonder if he got in the portal, if we'd have some interest in him.
Yeah, right.
But if you have if you take that talent, you have direction, which is kind of the new Nebraska, not just Saturday against Northern Iowa. This is a 5-touchdown win.
Yes.
And it's not a tension convention, and it looks like the opening week. And you go, okay, now it's time for big boy football.
Right.
Illinois is here. Hopefully Illinois is ranked, and Nebraska can break that string of not beating ranked teams.
Mm-hmm. That's not a big ask. That's the thing is, this isn't like, oh gosh, you beat a Colorado team that is going to have some struggles of their own, and you think you should be beating FCS teams by 5 touchdowns. Yeah, I do. I mean, I really do. It's about that time where Nebraska, 30 points, hell, okay, lay it on, because they should be. If this is a team that is truly taking a step forward, and they've already shown early glimpses of that, 2-0 is 2-0. All right, we haven't seen that since 2016. That next step is looking the part against competition that is weaker than you. That is absolutely no disrespect. There's no grand illusion, though, in Cedar Falls that, hey, we got more talent than that team. Okay, that's just, come on. So for this to be a game that Nebraska comes in the first half and at halftime, that score looks the way it is, that's how it's supposed to look. That's not like, oh, you guys are getting ahead of your skis. No. That's not this matchup on Saturday. It just
rooting for Illinois to win this weekend. So I got a couple of rooting interests.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rooting for Travis Hunter. I'm rooting for Illinois because maybe Illinois will be ranked.
Yep.
And they will come in here for a Friday night game to be ranked, because you guys know how long it's been since Nebraska beat a ranked team. This is the year of this is not the year of Michael Stonebreaker. This is the year of Michael Streakbreaker.
I see what you did. That's good.
I remember him.
Hey, the last time Nebraska would have beat a ranked team,
they're going to make a 30 for 30 off this season, as much as we've talked about this season that is being compared to this season.
Well, yeah, because there's
2016.
Yeah,
week 3 against Oregon.
There's a lot of those.
Nebraska's won a game against a ranked opponent.
Those comparables, though, to 2016 as well. When you look at the slate Nebraska had, I think it's funny. Now it would be a game, one game later in the schedule. No, I take that back. Earlier in the schedule, because remember, Nebraska got off to a 7-0 start. Then they lose to Wisconsin. Then it was Ohio State. This one, where, if you believe it, and I still a lot of things that need to look the part for me to get on a 7-0 before Ohio State. But again, Ohio State's lurking at the end of that, just like in 2016. Yeah. There are a lot of comparables. It is interesting. The question is, how does this one finish compared to that 2016? Great. Give me 9 wins. That'd be awesome. But how do they finish the season?
2016 season might need to be, they got to have a 30 for 30. We talk about that season so much. I think so.
What if I told you?
So I don't know if Illinois would be ranked. It's not like they're playing.
Got Central Michigan this week.
But you never know. Maybe somebody loses. It's not a very good slate of games this week. And Illinois sneaks in there.
They got votes.
Will there be? Now you got to watch out for Rutgers. By the way, got a gift schedule this year. I think off the top of my head, it has been 11 years since Nebraska played an opponent that was also ranked in Memorial Stadium.
Jesus.
I may have missed a game along the way, but I think it's UCLA in 2013. Because UCLA was number 16 in the country, and Nebraska was, they weren't 20, they were like 22nd or 23rd.
I know they're kind of where they are now.
That might be the last time that two ranked teams played against each other in Memorial Stadium.
Oof.
So go Illinois.
Yeah. More of those games would be a lot of fun. Absolutely, more of those games would be a lot of fun.
Let's just be honest. Since Nebraska joined the Big Ten against ranked teams, they haven't been very good.
No.
I've got more fingers on my hand than they have wins over ranked teams since they joined the Big Ten. And
You've got all your digits.
I've got them all, Dion. All right, we got to take a break. Brandon Vogel is right around the corner on 1620 The Zone. Hey, congratulations to a guy that's been on the show that we happen to know. Got paid yesterday, Harrison Phillips, 2 years extension in Minnesota. Got
He's
19 mil.
My hero.
$13 million guaranteed. That is fantastic for a guy that when I first got to know him, he was killing offensive linemen in the Metro
Millard West.
at Millard West, and then went on to Stanford, went to the Bills, now to the Vikings.
His
Great
dog
guy.
was there with him.
Everybody knows about what he does back in this community, and he got paid. That is so great for him. Won't change him a bit, but he deserves to get that kind of money, and I'm glad the Vikings have invested in him, and we look forward to talking to him as the season unfolds.
And I'm not going to pretend to know how he spends his money, but I can give you a pretty good idea that some of that money is going to be going right back into his organization of what they do here in town with youth and providing a lot of opportunities, sports clinics and different things that he does, and providing those type of experiences. That's one of the coolest things. Not because he's a former Millard West alum, which I'm always proud of, because I don't know if you guys know I went to Millard West too, but yeah, no, just he is as humble as humble pie can be. Like, great dude, always rooting for him.
I think I got a
really
new
like
team.
to have seen him play for Nebraska, but yeah, that didn't happen.
You're obviously going to root for the Vikings because of Harry?
Oh, yeah. Took his Yorkie to sign the contract yesterday. I'm in.
Yeah,
That's all I need.
So his playmakers, which, I mean, he
Give me one of
he
those
had it in
hats with the
Buffalo,
pigtails.
has it in Minnesota, he has it here. When that, I think it was Tom Pelissero tweeted that, I thought that is great for him. Because he's a guy that, his career didn't get off to a great start in Buffalo because he wasn't like a starter. And I thought when they drafted Ed Oliver, they were going to cut him. And I think Harrison, he didn't say it. He maybe intimated during an interview that we did with him that he doesn't know, it's a business. He understands. And the next thing you know, he's getting quality snaps for the Bills, like in crunch time in the playoffs. And then it was time to, Buffalo couldn't keep him. I hooked up with Minnesota, and he has been a day one starter. I'm so happy that he got paid. He deserves it. He went and got the bag. Again, it won't change him, but there's an A+ human being that we're lucky enough that he impacts a lot of people in this community, and still is, recognizes Omaha as his home, and mom and dad are here, and you see him around all the time. Now, I think Kirk over at Millard West would like him to come back and maybe take a couple of snaps.
Yeah, might get him off the schneid there too.
They got a big game this weekend. Maybe get him back and maybe run a series.
Oh God, that would be that would be pretty impressive. Illegal, yes, but very impressive. Probably a little bit intimidating too for the guys that line up.
Yeah.
Kids are bigger these days, but I still think that might not work out in their favor.
$13 million guaranteed.
Yeah, 2-year
extension, $19 million for Harrison Phillips.
There's the part about the Harrison Phillips trajectory in the NFL too this is what I'm not excited for, because it could ultimately impact the team that I root for in the Chicago Bears. But I think he's in a great system there too with Brian Flores. I mean, people can say what they will about Brian Flores, especially Tua, but as a defensive player playing under Brian Flores, more times than not, you're going to see guys that are going to thrive in that system too. So I just where he's at right now, I think he's in a very good spot.
Jimmy and myself could thrive in that defense playing against the Giants.
Hell yes.
Why did the Giants have Daniel Jones drop back nearly 50 times?
Because he's a slinger.
As bad as
because he's
uniforms.
still Danny Dimes.
Hello.
You guys got to get on board with those uniforms. They weren't bad. They were not
Awful.
bad. They were not bad.
Michigan's uniforms mated with the ones from that George Clooney movie. And
I mean, maybe subconsciously I did like him because of the look of the Canadians, but
yeah, I think that's what.
There we go.
That's what you're thinking.
Michigan and the Montreal Canadiens
they were okay.
mated.
I've seen a lot worse uniforms, a lot uglier NFL uniforms too. So they weren't even in the top 5.
All right, Brandon Vogel of Counter Reel will join us next. All right, time to welcome our good friend from counterread.com, Brandon Vogel, who joins us on this Wednesday. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, before we dive into some football, thoughts last night on the 5-set thriller in Lincoln?
As good as you'll get for September volleyball. Hats off to Creighton. I mean, when you look at some of the numbers underneath that one, hitting percentage was pretty close to equal, and it kind of came down to the fifth set and which team's going to get it, and Nebraska was able to on its home floor, but looked every bit the part of a top 10 matchup. For Nebraska, we had the loss to SMU last week, of course, and then Creighton comes to your place and pushes you to the limit. Cook likes to use these non-conference slates as a way to get ready for what's coming in October, November, and December. And I think what we've seen so far is Nebraska has some kinks to work out.
Resilient Nebraska team winning that, but also a resilient Creighton team to force it into a fifth set. I know Tom Chattel put this out there too. Other people maybe takeaways that we could see Creighton also go to new heights. When you watched them yesterday, do you think of a Creighton team that maybe looks a little bit different where they could take that further than what they have in their program's history?
I do buy that. I mean, they crack the top 10 if you can stay there, through the season. You're in the hunt among one of those top 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds potentially. To go deep in the NCAA tournament. Norris is obviously an outstanding player, and they have, I think, a few more options than they've had previously for Creighton volleyball. You mash it up against a team like Nebraska, however, and Nebraska is the difference. Between taking that next step is Nebraska still has, I think, even more options after that. So, but Creighton's going to have a great season, and you peak at the right time, and there's definitely a chance. I think you could see Creighton go that deep.
And by the way, SMU knocked off top 20 Baylor.
Yep.
So maybe we just partially panic.
Yep.
Let's talk about offense, because a quarterback is being talked about, and he has looked good. There are other elements of running the football that look good. There are some splash plays. But then there's also an offense that kind of got put on the clock by their head coach and OC. When you look at the first 2 weeks, maybe what they've tried, from the crossers to the wheel routes that look really enticing, to some of the things that they still need to work on, how good can this offense be? Or what do you think this offense will be when they finally get everything aligned?
They have the potential to be pretty dangerous if they get everything aligned. I mean, the coaches this week have just hammered the perimeter blocking angle, and I think that shows up through 2 games. Dylan Raiola is completing over 70% of his passes, and Nebraska's been able to do that because it's had a lead and kind of sat on both of these games, which is a great spot to be in. If the RPO game is working a little better, which the RPO numbers are way up from a year ago in this offense. If it's working a little bit better, Nebraska might be averaging close to 50 points a game after 2 games. So that's the piece that's been missing. I think Northern Iowa this week represents kind of the right game at the right time for Nebraska. And I would expect them to come out and really hit that angle hard. So, well, you might think, FCS opponent, just hand the ball off and wear them down. I won't be surprised if Nebraska comes out and really tries a lot of the screens, the perimeter stuff, essentially, because they weren't good at it last week against Colorado. And not only that, but penalties negated some of the pieces where they were good at it. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for Saturday.
Yeah, the perimeter game was something I was going to ask you about. Explosive plays in the passing game too. I would like to think we see at least more attempts of that, given what you're up against. But also, to your point, Brandon, I feel like this game is about the offense, and to see some steps being taken, but also maybe more importantly, who can really be those standout type players. So as far as just the vertical passing game, getting beyond, because we were talking about this throughout the week of Dylan 10 yards or less, 18 for 18, which is great to see. But when you do want to be able to utilize what you think you have as a wide receiving core in the explosive plays, is that something that should be expected on Saturday?
Yeah, I think you would hope so. Given where Northern Iowa is, the strength of their defense is their run defense. So you'd feel good, presumably, about taking your shots there. And Nebraska has just missed two of them. That also would change the numbers, quite a bit when you think about the UTEP diving catch that Nayar just couldn't quite come up with, or last week to Charles. So they've had some scheme stuff that's been there. You just gotta execute those pieces of it a little bit better, and I think this applies to the downfield passing as much as it does the perimeter stuff. Like, I expect Nebraska to really work on it on Saturday, because when you play the long game, like, they're the pieces of it that have been missing so far from what otherwise has been a close to flawless start on both sides of the ball.
So all of what we have said is true about fixing the minor details, and the offense puts up more points. And one of the things that I think comes out, and they might have used as a cut up as an example, is a guy that, kind of to Nick's point, Brandon, about the offense and explosive plays. Walk me through your thoughts on Barney and what it's going to look like moving forward, because we've seen, we know that the jet touch pass is there. We know the counter bluff reverse is there. And if there's not a penalty downfield, he has a house call. So now that we move into game 3 with that option in this offense, what do you think it looks like with Ja'Cory Barney?
Yeah, I would expect the touches to keep going up, and I think some of the plays that you mentioned probably remain the bulk of how they get him the ball. If they are able to improve the perimeter piece of this, maybe you see him a little bit more on some of those screens. But right now, he's a guy 2 games into his college career who is like, we just have to get him the ball X number of times a game, and those plays have been successful. I think if you can maintain that piece of it and get him the ball in some new ways, whether that's in the slot or through some of the RPO stuff, that becomes kind of the next level for him. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a pretty good season for a true freshman who, coming in, I think we all thought he was going to be good based on what we saw and heard in the spring. But now you're talking about like real yards and points on the board. And if he maintains this pace, it could be a pretty sizable impact.
If you're looking at something defensively, we were talking about the offense sort of middling, especially when it came to like different statistic categories. Third down conversion, almost 50%. It was hard not to notice, though, because our eyes tell us exactly what this defense is doing and how good they look. But when you see the third down conversion rate for opponents against this Nebraska defense, such a big part of the conversation going into this year, especially the way last year ended, where they just could not get off on the field in third down. I haven't heard it discussed as much, and I know why Tony White hasn't brought it up, because it is week 2. But from what you've seen, especially with an offense last week like Colorado that can try to attack you in different ways in the passing game, is that number more just a product of, early in the season not get carried away, or is there something there?
Yeah, I think for me, it's mostly a product of not getting carried away. And I go back and forth when I look at numbers on trying to like filter out garbage time. Early in the season, I'm a little bit more likely to do it because we have more games in college football that enter garbage time. But generally, I'm hesitant to like throw away actual data. But for now, that's what I would do. And I don't know Nebraska's third down conversion percentage. When you remove, some of the end of game drives against UTEP and Colorado, but that would be kind of the first place I would look at it. But the Nebraska defensively is kind of interesting overall. Like, the points are down, the splash plays are really there. I think they're executing their goals. I thought Rule and Tony White were good this week talking about the 4-man rush, which is a familiar part of the offseason. So it might just be a little bit noise at this point with how those games have gone, would be my, I guess, cautious approach to that number with the black shirts.
Hey, we'll get chatter on this. Let's talk about 2 weeks in the Big Ten and what's ahead after Saturday night. Nebraska jumps into the Big Ten. So ESPN's FPI schedule, strength of schedule rankings, the easiest schedules remaining at the bottom 3 are Illinois, Minnesota, Rutgers. Rutgers got a gift from the heavens with the schedule this year. They avoid the big boys, and they might be legit. We'll find out the first weekend in October. The three hardest remaining schedules, Purdue, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Is there a team through the first 2 weeks in the Big Ten that is on Nebraska's schedule that if you have changed more for, might have to look at that might be a more difficult game than I thought, and a team that you said, I had that pegged as a game that Nebraska's got to be looking out for. Now I'm like, that might actually work out well for Nebraska.
Yeah, I came into the year kind of expecting Indiana to be that team, and I think they still might be. I think that's just going to be kind of a classic Big Ten hard-nosed game that you didn't expect very often from Indiana of the past. So that's the one that jumps to mind for me immediately. Illinois is interesting, particularly because they're coming up next week. Beat Kansas, big home win. Was really positive. I think they were +3 in turnovers. First time KU quarterback had thrown 3 interceptions in a game, and a 5-point win. Like, I kind of walked back a little bit on that one, but I think Illinois is a little bit better than maybe preseason projections would have had us thought. Honestly, I think not on the schedule for Nebraska, but I think Minnesota might be better than they were given credit for in the off season as well. So we'll see. Purdue defense looked really good in its one game so far against a FCS foe. So that Purdue result, I'll raise an eyebrow. So I'll be interested to see what they do this week too.
Yeah, against Notre Dame. Brandon, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. Rutgers, the only team that dodges Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
How? And UCLA gets Oregon at Washington, at Rutgers, Penn State, at Nebraska, and USC.
Yeah.
That Rutgers is averaging 300 yards on the ground per game. Yeah. Now they played, the Y.
They will go to the Blacksburg. Sorry, did I just say the Blacksburg? Yeah, they will go to Blacksburg next week
and play the football.
But is Nebraska's schedule just because of the remaining opponents are 16-1? Because there's only 2 teams that would be ranked right now.
Right. With USC and Ohio State. So I think it is. It's just because of the start that they're off to right now, because I was looking at just the FPI of game by game to see how much it's adjusted. The one that I think adjusted more was Purdue. Came back to, I think Nebraska's a 58% win probability. And if I remember correctly, going into the season and looking at them game by game, I think that was more closer to like 65. So it's been adjusted a little bit, but I'll be curious once we start Big Ten play, especially with getting through the first 2 weeks of Big Ten competition, regardless of where Nebraska is, how that all kind of settles out. Because I think a lot of that is because of just the starts they've gotten off to. It's kind of like what Brandon was talking about with certain statistics too, where you can look at it and say, oh, there's something there. But then you kind of look at it and be like, okay, you got to consider the schedule that those teams are playing right now too. Because that record, ironically, the only team with 1 loss right now being the Iowa Hawkeyes, which I would say would be a pretty damn tough game though still.
Who have the men of Troy this weekend.
Yeah. Good
from Alabama.
Back. Good bounce back there.
The crossover. I mean, you're
not wrong.
Yeah. Crossover's coming up next. You missed anything? It's up on the radio replay page at 1620thezone.com. Enjoy the rest of your day. We're back in tomorrow at 6.